What is up, champions of Azeroth? This is the Chigg coming at you with Bazel for episode 2 of the Chigg and Bazel chat. So go ahead and say hi, Bazel.
What's up, guys?
Today we are going to be talking about the classes, and we're going through the process of how to pick your class based on what you know. And this is kind of a big thing on my end because I always struggle. So not only is this going to help me out, this is going to help you guys out in the long run. So what I have here is my list of characters that I've already put together that I've been making guides for, as I'm sure you guys have seen. So we're going to start here. Basil's going to ask some questions, and we are going to go from there and kind of try to narrow down what I'm doing. If you see me alt tab and start making a spreadsheet, don't panic. It means I'm trying to make my ADHD brain happy. Anyway, we're going to go right into it. Where do you want to start, Basil?
So I want to preface this with just saying that first we're going to kind of go over like the basic feel of how the class feels in the first place. This is before any of the season discovery changes, and then after we figure out what we like and what we dislike about a specific class, then we'll start jumping into the season of discovery runes and everything else that's added on to kind of give more of an overall feel of what we think with everything we know. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and start with the warrior. I almost said hunter, but I meant warrior. Uh, so, he's going to click on Ace and go ahead and tell me what you like about the warrior from the get go, just baseline before any runes or any of the changes.
All right, so first thing, we'll start talking about the warrior. But firstly, turn your fan down. It is too loud. All right.
I did turn it off.
Oh my goodness. All right, good. So cool things about the warrior. Absolutely, starting off the rip, you can do more than one role. That is huge in the long run. At the end of the day, I would be a Fury boy because I am huge on dual wielding, which is one of the huge benefits of playing the warrior. Your weapon selection is massive. Even when you read the description of warrior at the beginning of the game, when you're starting to make your character, says a master of arms with the ability to use basically any weapon you can get your hands on. So that's really good and a really good starting point. I also really enjoy that the itemization is such that not only can you use plate and mail gear, you can also use leather gear. And at the end of the game, typically your pre-raid bis is an amalgamation of not only plate gear, but you have a couple mismatched pieces of leather gear in there, some crafted gear, and you're just all over the place. So I think that's pretty cool. The way itemization works is pretty neat on the warrior. And then you have the mentality of hit it very hard. Also, I don't really speak squishy, so having mana is kind of a problem for me. So having something that kind of regenerates itself as you play, and the better your gear gets, the more of the resource you get. Now I have been looking. Let's hop into some of the Season of Mastery stuff. When I make my guides, I do not care about meta. I do not care about the most effective tactics possible. What I care about is the most amount of smiles I have playing my class. So, when I was looking into that, all of the guys that are making these meta guides are like, this is mathematically the best, is all super boring auto attack as dual wield arms until you are above 80 fury, and then spam heroic strike for 12 swings, and then do it again. And that does not sound fun. So, as far as playing that way, I'm not going to do that. I went over that in my Warrior Guide, which is either already out or should be coming out tomorrow morning. I'm not sure, depending on when we post this. Um, and the itemization for getting ready for the raid is pretty easy. We go over that in the video that I put out. I do like some of the runes. Single Minded Fury has always been something I've always been into. We have the Raging Blow, which is going to be cool. There's a lot of synergies with that. And just overall, the feel of Warrior is going to be a little different, and being able to Thunderclap in defensive stance is going to be something else. Being able to Thunderclap in Berserker stance. We're also going to have the opportunity for those of you who like PvP to be able to charge in any stance, intercept in any stance, and intervene in any stance. So they're going to be a little more mobile. They're going to be able to move faster. Their damage output's going to be a little bit better, and it's just going to be overall an improvement. But it still remains to be one of the not super changed. You might be getting a couple of extra buttons, but it's still going to be the same warrior where you're really relying on gear. You're going to die really easy unless you have the new Victory Rush talent. The new Victory Rush talent comes around such that it is like it is in Cataclysm, where you can use it after you kill something for 20 seconds and it heals you for 10% of your maximum health. So currently in Wrath, it doesn't do that, but once you get into Kata, it does. And then the problem I have with that, if you're leveling as this, is it removes Single-Minded Fury. So kind of my two pennies there. The last thing I was looking at was the spec that would be working the best as far as mathematically most DPS. So that's what's currently on my screen, but that is not where I'm at with my brain. I'm going to be playing Fury if I play Warrior, bar none.
Yeah, you love that single-minded fury. Every time, like when retail popped out that single-minded fury talents and everything else, you're just like, oh, gonna play warrior.
Yeah,
So
so since we got
yeah,
the new talents, my Warrior in retail has not had two-handers on ever. So just saying.
yeah. So it's whopping stuff a little bit faster and everything else with one-handers is kind of fun. Obviously, I speak squishy, so I can't speak too much for warrior, but yeah. Um, any closing remarks about the warrior, like how fun it is, anything like that for anybody that uh may not have played warrior in the past, but may kind of want to look into it?
Yeah, if your first foray with Warrior is going to be this time around with the classic mentality, um, they are making the leveling process of it incredibly easy. So you don't get dual wield as a warrior until level 20 anyway. So how I prefer to level the warrior is with a one-hander and a shield. However, with the way the new things work, that's not what I would be doing. I would be grabbing Blood Frenzy to get more rage. I would be grabbing Frenzied Assault because it's going to give your two-handed weapons 20% more attack speed. So I kind of went over the math and how that works in my other video. But if you've got a 3.6 weapon, you're going to be swinging around 2.9. If you've got a 3.0 weapon, you're going to be swinging around a 2.4. Got a 2.4 weapon, you're going to be swinging around a 2, maybe a little less. And then if you get lucky and you get the Prospector's Axe, which is like a 2.1 weapon, you're going to be swinging a two-hander as fast as you'd be swinging a dagger. So it's going to get kind of crazy. And then you also have the rune Quick Strike, which is going to make using a two-hander infinitely more fun and smooth when you're playing it, because what it's doing is it's basically replacing your heroic strike. So you have a button to push in between your auto attacks, and it's going to kind of remove the need that we have had to do the hamstring kiting method, which is where you would hamstring, you'd run away, you'd run in when your swing timer comes back, because you would auto attack, and then about halfway through your auto attack, you would quick strike, and then you would auto attack again. That is as long as the quick strike doesn't reset your swing timer, which is something that may happen. But if that's the case, what you would do, auto, as soon as your auto hits, you quick strike. But even with that, like, your burst is going to go up a lot. I don't believe that it's going to be resetting your swing timer, because if that was the case, then they just made a worse version of heroic strike, because now you have to time it with your auto attack instead of just queuing it up for your auto attack. So we'll see how that goes.
Indeed, indeed. All right. So with warrior out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about hunter.
Okay, let me pull up the
Um,
hunter here.
pull up
Um,
old Chiggity Cho.
so for those of you who don't know, my very first character that got past level like 18 was a troll hunter named Chiggity Cho with a little red raptor from Duratar named Rawr, who I took all the way to Wrath of the Lich King with that little raptor, taming other pets and getting skills along the way. So it was kind of intense. I would like to say this because I had some comments about it on my hunter video. If you've watched my hunter video, no, I do not have the Blessing of Kings enchant on my chest, because any ranged hunter in their right mind will not use Aspect of the Lion over Aspect of the Hawk, because getting extra attack power and extra attack speed is going to be better than 10% flat stats period. Sorry, not sorry. Um, anyway, so where do we want to start with the hunter?
So, kind of go over base hunter prior to any of the runes, anything like that. Give us an idea of what it is that originally attracted you to hunter, what it is that might attract new guys to hunter, and give us a brief overview of how it plays and everything else, and then we'll get into the changes.
All right, so hunter in general has its own flavor for sure. If you like to be the guy that's self-sufficient, that can help everybody, that has all of the utility in the world, like this is a really good spot to be. Something I like about the hunter is that it has a really low skill floor and probably the highest skill ceiling in the game. Being able to learn when, how, and where to use your utility skills is going to put you leaps and bounds ahead of the next hunter. So anybody who plays with hunters frequently will be able to pick out the good ones from the bad ones almost immediately because of their pet management, their skill management, their cooldown management, and it's going to be a big difference in not only the DPS but the performance of the class in general. When you're leveling until level 10, it sucks. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Before you get your pet, it is bad.
It
Um,
is not fun.
yeah, there's going to be a couple of things. There may be a couple of runes we can get early that are going to make it a little easier. I'm very much hoping that, um, honestly, what I want to see first, I really hope the first rune we get is just Lone Wolf because that way we can benefit from it until we get our pet. Um, Aside from that, once you get your pet, it becomes the easiest thing in the game to level. You send in your pet attacks, you give it a second, you watch your threat meter, which everybody needs to learn how to read a threat meter. We're going to have a lot of problems with that. Make sure you're using auto attack. Don't ever let your mana get full. So just Serpent Sting, Arcane Shot every now and then to keep it. Because if you're not using some of your mana, you're just letting your regeneration go to waste, right? So what you're going to be doing, you're going to be auto attacking them down. The single most important thing to your hunter repertoire is your ranged weapon. Everything else is just adding to that. So when you're running through and you're going to different vendors and stuff, always check to see if there's a higher DPS ranged weapon because the numbers are the only thing that matters until you get way later in the game. Which makes it super easy because you can run around in whites with a green bow and do just as good as somebody running around in greens with a white bow. Like it doesn't matter as long as your DPS numbers on your bow are such that you are killing things at a decent clip, it doesn't matter. And also, since you rely on your pet a lot, you don't have to worry about anything else. It's just going to be the most chill and easiest way to level. And I don't think you're ever going to have any problems getting a group. I don't think you're ever going to have any problems doing any of the quests. Um, Hunter in general is just easier because you don't have dodge and parry on your attack table. You either hit or you don't. So you don't really have to worry about all of the other things. The talents are always really straightforward. There's a little bit of variety. You can switch it up. Obviously, there's going to be outside influences this time around because of the runes and stuff, but for the most part, you can basically do what you want. It's going to be a little easier. And in my hunter video, which a lot of you have already seen, like I go over a couple of those things, and it's just, I mean, it's going to be incredible. And as far as the changes, so the things I want to point out the most, we'll just go ahead. The talents, I'm just going to beeline for aimed shot because I enjoy that. So when I was going over these, Cobra Strikes, this just makes your pet critically hit. Exposed Weakness gives you more stats. This isn't going to be as good lower level because you're not going to have enough stats for it to matter. Lone Wolf, 25% increased damage with all attacks when you do not have an active pet. This is just going to be all you ever use in group play, right? It's going to be amazing. And then Master Marksman. This is what I'm going to use all the time. Increases your critical strike chance by a flat 5%. It does not say ranged. It does not say melee. It says critical strike chance and reduces the mana cost of all of your shots by 25%. So one of the big problems that I mentioned earlier is your mana management. So when you're able to just have 25% more mana at all times, it's hard to beat that. And then the first 5 points in Marksman are efficiency, which reduces the mana cost of your shots and stings by 10%. So you're already at 35% reduced. So you're already a third bigger mana bar from the rip. And then when you go over and look at the leg training stuff or leg rune stuff, right? So you've got sniper training. you can just get 30% critical strike chance if you can stand still for 6 seconds. Based on what I've seen, though, a lot of the fights we're going to have that are new content, this isn't really going to be as applicable as it normally would be. But if we get like normal molten core, hunters are just going to be crit capped. It's going to be amazing. Serpent spread, your multi shots just giving you serpent sting. I was thinking about this kind of combination the other day where if you are a night elf and you're just chilling out and hanging out in Ashenvale, shadow melded with lone wolf, um, open up with an aimed shot out of stealth, and then multi shot with serpent spread on, and then chimera shot, and you're gonna delete somebody. Like they're just gonna die in 3 globals because what can they do about that? If one or two of those abilities crit, they're okay. They're dead. GG. Next person. Shadow meld. Shadow meld has a super short cooldown too. So like, cool, fine, right?
Unfortunately for you, you're going to be a troll.
I
It looks
mean,
like.
hey, it depends on where we wind up, right? We're going to be on a PvP
Right.
server somewhere and we're going to be playing something. We don't know yet. That's what we're trying to find out, right? That's why we're having this conversation.
Exactly. So one thing I do want to mention too, with the runes and stuff, I want everybody to take notice at one thing: Hunter is the only class that did not get a secondary thing that they can do in dungeons. They are still strictly DPS. Everything else that used to be strictly DPS now has a tanking spec. So Hunter is 100% DPS. I just
Well,
wanted to throw that out there.
yeah, makes sense though, since you run around with the tank. So, meh.
Yeah, but I mean, technically, hunters have always been able to tank a little bit, but not well.
Right. All right. Let me
So,
pop.
uh, what happened?
I was just gonna keep going with the runes.
Oh, go for it.
So kill command. Give the command to kill, increasing your pet's damage done for special attacks by 60% for 30 seconds. Each special attack done by the pet reduces its damage bonus by 20. So it's just gonna make a couple of your attacks stronger. It's just good, right? And then flanking strike for all you melee hunters, which I'll probably make a melee hunter guide at some point, but you and your pet deal simultaneous instant 100% melee damage. Afterward, your Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike deal 10% increased damage for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, up to 30 for those who do not do quick math. And then Raptor Strike just flat has a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Flanking Strike. So there's going to be some times where your melee hunter is just going to kill himself because he's not going to watch his threat and he's going to smack him too many times with Flanking Strike, and it's going to be hilarious. And
I can
then
easily see that happening.
right. And then you pop over to the last set of runes here on the hands, and these are by far the most interesting that we have. So we have Beastmaster. Your pet's damage and health are both increased by 30%. Awesome. Energy or focus regeneration by 80%, almost twice as fast. And in addition, your pet growls also a hard taunt, which has been a problem in the past. So you'll be able to have a little more threat when your cooldown is up on growl. Carve, melee ability that sweeps in front of you. Amazing. Chimera shot. Oh, God. You instantly deal, it doesn't say instantly, but I promise you this is not a wound up shot. You instantly deal 125% weapon damage, refreshing the current sting on your target and triggering an effect. So, this is why this is so powerful with multi-shot. Multi-shot deals huge damage, and with that rune, we'll put Serpent Sting for 6 seconds. This will deal 40% of your total Serpent Sting damage and refresh it to its full duration, or it will give you back 60% of total mana from your Viper Sting, or it will try to disarm the target if they can be disarmed for 10 seconds. Chimera Shot's just going to be awesome, right? So Explosive Shot, we're just doing some extra damage, blows up every 2 seconds. This isn't going to be super good unless we get a rune later that also has lock and load that gives it a chance to reset, but early on, this could be really strong because also another instant shot pops twice. This ignores armor because it's fire damage. So I think all of these are going to be really good. And I think no matter what spec you go or what you're doing, I think Beastmaster is going to be your go-to here, unless you're PvPing and then you're going to want Chimera Shot. Just because your pet's going to be able to hold off you better that way. And I think, unless you've got any specific questions about the Hunter, I think that's where I'm good on this.
Uh, Honestly, just keeping in mind that it's like he said earlier, it's super chill. It's once you get your pet, it's an absolute cakewalk to level, no matter what level range you're going through, all the way up to even 60 when we get that far. It's always going to continue to be strong. And they have so much utility. Uh, I I speak squishy, so I like mana. However, I like hunter too. So, you know, um, do with that information what you will. All right. Other than that, unless you have anything to add on that, we can move on to the lock.
All right, let's go to my lock named Lock. So,
Yeah.
all right.
So we'll start off with what you like about the base class, what you dislike about the base class. Um, you know, prior to any changes or anything like that, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So, what I like about the Warlock prior to any changes is most definitely the flavor. It's a lot of fun. I really like dots in general, so being able to like lean into that playstyle is even better. And then we're in a situation here with this where we are going to be able to double down on whatever we like about the class, as well as adding a third way to play it. So that's going to be fun to talk about. I've already put out a video about tanking as a warlock, and that's where this is set up right now. But we'll be able to kind of break that down a little bit later. I also like the ease of gearing, because you're not going to have a lot of competition for the shadow damage pieces, because there's not going to be a lot of people playing Shadow Priest or a lot of people playing Warlock, to be completely honest with you. I like that you get your little pocket tank. I like that you don't have to use it to tank. I like that there's multiple different ways you can play it. I always personally played the Warlock as a drain tank. I was never really a fan of, oh, hey, I'm going to use my Void Walker and blah, blah, blah. I would turn off the Void Walker's taunt, use it as a melee guy, and then like use my sacrifice ability if I ever got in trouble. Um, like there's lots of different ways you could do it, and it just made it a little easier and more fun to play that way. I also believe that just playing the warlock in general, depending on what side you're on, there used to be a little bit of a little advantage to being horde warlock. But not anymore, since paladins are gonna be able to be walking tremor totems. So that's about it as far as the before changes. So let me go ahead and pull up the talents here. Obviously, if I play this, it's gonna be affliction. Period. I like affliction. I'm doing dots. I'm done. Dunzo.
He's all about the dots and hots.
I'm all about them hots and dots. Let me tell you. So you go through here, and we're looking at the runes now. So increase your melee and spell critical strike chance of you and your pet by 10%. That's amazing. Lake of Fire leaves, so Rain of Fire also leaves a Lake of Fire on the ground that increases all damage you deal, all fire damage you deal by your pet and your demons by 40% for 15 seconds. So you let it tick once, and then you Chaos Bolt something in the face. It's going to be amazing. Master Channeler, your drain life is no longer channeled, lasts 15 seconds with a 15-second cooldown, costs 100% more mana, and heals you for 50% more time each time it deals damage. This is going to be amazing, not only for tanking, but for just playing the game in general, because you're just going to be able to throw up another dot that's going to heal you, and you're not going to have to worry about getting pushed back ever, right? So we used to have to get a talent that keeps us from getting pushed back. Obviously, you still want to put points into that talent because it increases the damage and healing that it does. But you never have to worry about your heal getting pushed back, which is going to be amazing. If you do still want to play that play style, though, you can do Soul Siphon. Increases the amount drained by your Drain Life and Drain Soul spell by an additional 6% for each of your Warlock Shadow effects afflicting the target, up to a maximum of 18% additional effect. So each of your different spells you have on the target will give you up to 18% increased effect. So it's going to be a little stronger, but you're still going to have to spec into not getting the pushback in order to use that. So I'm thinking Master Channeler is going to be the way to go. And then you pop over here and you start looking at the leg runes. So you got Demonic Grace. That is just your dodge and like, yeah, dodge and crit. Like it's a cooldown. Like it's just dodge and crit, right? It's amazing. Demonic Pact. This is the passive that's like it is in the future of the game. Your pet's critical strikes apply the Demonic Pact effect to your party members. Increases the spell damage and healing by 10% of your spell damage for 13 or whichever is higher. Does not work on subjugated demons. The reason it doesn't work on subjugated demons is because they have different stats than your demons, but This is just going to be strong, right? This is going to put you in the front for all of the gear that gives more spell power because it's going to benefit the group. Everlasting Affliction. This is the one I'm going for because I think it's amazing. Drain Life, Drain Soul, Shadow Bolt, Shadow Cleave, Searing Pain, Incinerate, and Haunt. Refresh the duration of your corruption on the target back to its maximum duration. You put up one corruption, and then you don't have to worry about it ever again, which is amazing. Incinerate, damage, and then increases your fire damage. It's great. It's awesome. If you're Destro, get Incinerate. If you're Affliction, get Everlasting Affliction. If you're Demonology, get Demonic Pact. And if you're a tank, Demonic Grace. Like, these are really cut and dry and really awesome. And then your hand rune. These are the fun ones. I'm going to start with Metamorphosis because that's the one I made the video on first. Transforms you into a demon, increasing your armor by 500% and reducing the chance you'll be critically hit by 6%, increasing your threat by 100%, and mana gain from life tap by 100%, transforming the functionality of some of your abilities. Searing Pain, now instant, which is amazing. Shadow Bolt becomes Shadow Cleave, a shadow melee attack that hits up to 3 nearby enemies, but has a 6-second cooldown, so you're going to be using that on cooldown, and you're going to be filling with Searing Pain. Curse of Recklessness now also taunts your target to attack you for 3 seconds, but has a 10-second cooldown, and its range is reduced to melee. Demonic Charge. Charge an enemy and stun it for 1 second. Cannot be used in combat. Oh, hey, you became a warrior. And then Demonic Howl is your AoE taunt. So, this is going to be awesome, right? And you already have a lot of things that are going to pull from range, and then you mix that in with, like, the Master Chandler rune and all that, and that's going to heal you, and then you're going to be able to drain life or improve life tap while you're getting healed, and it's just going to be great. And then we'll pop up here to Chaos Bolt. Send a bolt of chaotic fire energy at the enemy, dealing 225 to 286 fire damage. Chaos Bolt always hits, cannot be resisted, and its knowledge causes all your fire spells to pierce through absorption effects. This is just going to be awesome for PvP because it's going to make all of your skills just like go through Shadow Word Pain and stuff. Do remember, absorption and immunity are not the same thing. You are not going to get through a Paladin's bubble with this. You will get through Shadow Word.
You're going to go
Priest
through
bubble.
Mage's barriers and
Mage's barriers and Priest bubbles. There we go.
Yeah.
Haunt. This is where I'm going with this. Unleash a ghostly soul on an enemy, dealing damage and increasing shadow damage over time you deal to that target by 20%. When the haunt ends or is dispelled, you'll be healed for the amount of damage it dealt to your target. So, this is trying to help the dots can't crit problem. I'm hoping later we get a rune that makes dots able to crit. Otherwise, this is just like Affliction is just going to fall off. But in the meantime, it's going to be good. And then this last one, I'm just calling this Better Seed of Corruption. Shadow Bolt Volley. Your Shadow Bolt now strikes up to 5 targets within a chain distance of 10 yards, but deals 20% or 20 reduced damage. So, like, especially...
You become a raid boss.
Yeah. Like, Shadow Bolt Volley is gonna be silly. Like, this is, like... So, when you're on... Here's basically my 2 pennies. When you're on Trash, you're gonna keep your Shadow Bolt Volley on your gloves. When you get to the boss, you're gonna switch to Haunt. And that's just what you're gonna do every time. And it's just... You are going to delete packs. And something else, if you have Unending Corruption, it does not say your target has to be the one you hit with the Shadow Bolt. It says when you hit with Shadow Bolt. So tab, 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 tab. Corruption, 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 corruption. Put Agony on a couple of them and just spam Shadow Bolt. And you will be top DPS unless you've got, you know, Rain of Fire. But, yeah. There's that. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 pennies there. All 3 specs are going to be amazing. Being a tank is going to be amazing. Affliction is going to be awesome. I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be really cool.
Oh yeah. Anybody that knows me at all knows that that's going to be what I'm playing. I've always loved Warlock ever since Burning Crusade when I first started playing. I absolutely love the flavor, you know, just summoning demons from, you know, the Twisting Nether to do your bidding and everything else. And it's not like they have a happiness mirror. You don't have to worry about them being happy. They're yours. You know, you never have to worry about them going away. And then on top of that, I've always liked the fantasy of a Warlock being able to tank. And now that we're legitimately going to be able to do it, it's not a cooldown like it was in Wrath and everything else. This is just, you pop Metamorphosis, you're a demon until you turn it off. And I love that. That's amazing. And I saw in one of his videos somebody saying something about you're wanting to focus fire damage instead of shadow, and now it makes sense because Searing Pain causes a high amount of threat. It's instant. The more damage you deal, the more threat you do as well. So you pop some fire damage, and all of a sudden your Searing Pain basically becomes a taunt. In addition to your Curse of Recklessness, and I don't know. I love Warlock. I could talk about it for hours. Yeah, it's just fun.
I would
um,
also posit that you don't need to stack fire damage because it already has a threat multiplier attached to it. So
you're true.
why would you not just stack shadow damage so your constant threat is better and then you have snap threat with your fire
Yeah.
spell?
So like, I guess at that point it kind of depends on single target versus multi target because like, if you're going to be doing a multi target fight, you're definitely going to want to do shadow damage for sure because your shadow cleave it's hitting up to 3 targets, and the more damage you deal with that, the more threat, the better you are tanking. However, if it's single target, having that fire damage just makes it even stronger of a taunt. Um, it, it's really, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to play that. It's really more of what you have fun with, and in all honesty, remember too that you're still going to have access to your other spells. It just changes the functionality of some of them. So like Metamorphosis, that's not. I spaced out for a second and can never remember which ones the runes go to. But is Chaos Bolts on the same one as Metamorphosis?
Yes.
Okay. But if it wasn't, just hypothetically, if it wasn't, you would still have access to Chaos Bolt. So there would be a reason for fire damage, yada yada. Not that you're going to want to cast a Chaos Bolt while tanking, but
Well, yeah, you never
as
want
a
to cast
pull,
spells because
right?
you can't dodge,
But
block, or
if you're
parry while you're
pulling or
casting.
something,
Yeah.
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 But then also another, I think another reason for the shadow damage, what you're saying too, is drain life is shadow spell. So the more damage it deals, the more health you heal. That's all based on shadow damage. So that's actually a very valid point. In all honesty, uh, warlocks might, if there ends up being a piece that has just flat spell damage, awesome. If not, Shadow's probably going to be your best, but I can see an argument for Fire.
Oh yeah, I mean either way it's gonna work. It
Yeah.
doesn't. There's
Oh
not
yeah.
enough differentiation for it to matter.
It, exactly, and especially at the lower levels and stuff. I mean, the spell damage isn't going to start getting crazy until you get 50s and 60s and stuff. So as of right now, it's basically just kind of rounding out the damage.
Hmm.
All right. With that being said, like I said, I could talk about Warlock for hours. I'm gonna stop right there unless you want to add anything.
Any other questions specifically before we move on to the mage?
Honestly, I think we've covered about everything on Warlock.
All right,
uh,
on to the
all right.
magi.
Let's go on to Magi, the undead mage here. As usual, just kind of go over the base and then what you like and dislike about mage, and then we'll move from there.
Infinity, utility, and mobility. The ability to kill as many mobs as you can pull without leashing them. The ability to single-handedly save your group with 1 point in improved blizzard in a dungeon. All of these things just make this incredible. You can feed your group, you can give them water, you can travel them around the world. Like your utility is unmatched, and your damage is such that you just go absolutely ham whenever you want, and it is great. There are very few downsides to playing a mage. My only issue with it is the mana bar. If I was a huge fan of casting spells, I would 100% lock in a mage, period. That's one of the appealing things about the warlock for me is you can play it in a manner where you don't have very many cast times, and that's just kind of my preferred playstyle. I have played mages in classic. I have leveled them. I have AoE grinded with them. I distinctly remember teaching you how to do it in Hillsbrad.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's a lot of fun. It's really skill intensive. It kind of tests your patience. It tests your knowledge of what you're doing, and it tests a lot of different things, and it's a lot of fun. I believe that anybody who likes the caster archetype should 100% just go ahead and roll a mage, and the changes are going to be incredible. And we can go ahead and hop into that because I don't have anything else to say about the mage other than it is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very utility focused. When it comes to utility, you basically have what? Hunter, Mage,
Paladin, and that's
Paladin, and Shaman.
yep,
Those are your utility ones. And honestly, each one has their perks, but like the Mage's perks are just
the
they're
best.
hard to they're hard to say anything's better. So yeah. So with our changes, what do we got?
Well, first I'd like to. I've not released my video on the mage yet, but as you can see here, this is like a single target setup for the Frost Mage here, except for 1 point in Improved Blizzard because it's just amazing. And then, so obviously you can do whatever spec you want and use whatever runes you want. But when you get to looking at the runes, you've got Burnout, increases your spell critical chance with all spells by 15%, but your non-periodic spell critical strikes now have an additional mana cost of 1% of your base mana. So whenever you crit, it costs you 1% of your mana, but you get 15% extra crit chance. So, like, okay, it's awesome. This is going to come in handy on fire. Enlightenment, you deal 10% more damage when you have more than 70% mana, and while below 30% mana, 10% of your mana regeneration continues while casting. So, this is kind of to help Arcane bring it up a little bit. Fingers of Frost. This is just amazing for Frost. Gives your chill effects a 15% chance to grant you the Finger of Frost effects, which treats your next 2 spell casts as though the target were frozen. So basically, once you get a Fingers of Frost proc, you stop moving, you cast Frost Bolt, and you cast Ice Lance. And you just shatter combo every time you get Fingers of Frost because that's what it's for, and it's amazing. And then regeneration, if you decide you want to be a Healy Boy Mage, heals the target over 3 seconds and makes them the temporal beacon for 30 seconds. Records the subject's space-time position. 100% of all arcane damage done by the caster will be converted to chronomantic healing. Whoa, that's a fun word. Divided among the caster's current temporal beacon targets. So, whenever you're dealing damage with this, it is going to be healing all of your temporal beacons. So you're going to have temporal beacon management, which I think is going to be fun. On the leg runes, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say you basically turn into a discipline priest of the retail era.
Yes.
You're putting a buff on your party and then doing damage.
Agreed. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how people come up with good ways to play that. And then we've got Arcane Surge over here. Unleash all of your remaining mana and a surge of energy focus at the target, dealing 95 to 111 arcane damage. Increased by up to 300% based on your mana remaining. Afterward, your normal mana regeneration is activated and increased by 300% for 8 seconds. So there, depending on what the cooldown of this ability is, there's going to be this really weird, fun playstyle where like you just Arcane Surge and then you run around until your mana bar is full again, and then you Arcane Surge again, and it's just going to be silly. Icy Veins hastens your spell casting, increasing spell casting speed by 20% and reduces the pushback suffered from damaging attacks while casting by 100%. This is just a no-brainer for any spec because it doesn't say Frost. It says spell casting. Yep. So it gets rid of all of there's no pushback, and it gives you 20% increased cast speed. So like this is just good. If you roll a troll mage, macro this to your berserking and laugh when you're at 50% HP and you get like 45% cast speed. You're just gonna be like, ha ha. Living Flame. So I'm gonna spell fire. Ooh, spell fire. Flame that moves forward to the target, leaving a trail of spell fire. This trail deals 42 damage of spell fire every second to nearby enemies. Last 20 seconds. That's kind of cool. And then Mass Regeneration. This is just an AoE heal. Heals all of target players' party members within 15 yards of the target player over 3 seconds and makes them all temporal beacons for 15 seconds. And then space-time position, 100% of all arcane damage done by the caster will be converted. So, yeah, that's just going to be good.
So the part I'm wondering is if that's going to be more beneficial or having that haste, that 20% increased casting speed for healing. Because, yeah, you're able to do it, but it only gives them 15 seconds of that that beacon. Whereas single targeting, if you do that single target on like 3 of your party members, or heck, all 5 of them, and then you pop that and you have 25 or 20% increased cast speed, and now you're just healing everybody, but faster. So that's a thought process I had earlier.
Here's my argument: mass regeneration, walk in, spam arcane explosion. Everybody's at full HP.
That's true. That's true. That's a very valid point.
Yeah, it's
Arcane
that.
explosion.
Yeah, exactly. Arcane explosion is just going to heal everybody because it says 100% of the damage, right? So if there's 5 mobs,
you arcane explosion and you heal for
a lot. Yeah, we're just going to say a lot. TM. And then down here on the hand rune, these are all interesting and they're all great and they're all just so flavorful for what we're doing here. Arcane Blast, everybody knows what this does. Blast the target with arcane energy, dealing damage. Each time you cast Arcane Blast, it increases the spell damage of all other arcane spells by 15%, and the mana cost of Arcane Blast is increased by 175%. Stacked 4 times and lasts 6 seconds, or until any other arcane damage spell or healing spell is cast. So you spam Arcane Blast, you get 4 stacks, and then you use a dump spell. So here's something to think about. You get 4 stacks of Arcane Blast, and then you use that ability that dumps all of your mana, and you one-shot somebody. Yeah, it's going to be...
I can see that being strong.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be real strong. Yeah, it's...
May just watch out on your threat.
Yeah, that's exactly what that means. Ice Lance, amazing instant frost damage. Okay, this is going to be great for pulling, for your AoE grinding. This is going to be great for shatter combos. This is going to be great for PvP kiting. This is going to be great for literally everything, and it's just Ice Lance. Living Bomb makes me happy. I'm glad this exists now. Target becomes a living bomb, taking fire damage over 12 seconds. After 12 seconds, or when it's dispelled, the target explodes, dealing 72 fire damage to all enemies within 10 yards. So this is gonna have the Seed of Corruption effect in Alterac Valley. As people are walking through a choke point, give them Living Bomb, and then as they're walking through, people are gonna be like, oh cool, he's got a debuff, dispel, and they're gonna blow up the whole raid, and it's gonna be hilarious. So rewind time. Your current target with your temporal beacon instantly heals all damage taken over the last 5 seconds. Ineffective on targets that did not have a temporal beacon 5 seconds ago. So what I would highly recommend is using this as your oh crap, heal the tank button. So you make sure at all times your tank has a temporal buff that is at least 5 seconds in duration. And then once they get bonked, bang, rewind time. And that is going to make your healing a lot easier. And that's the last room we've got to talk about. We are in a position right now where all of the specs are going to be incredible because they have added runes that are kind of shoring up some of the problems that each spec had. So I don't think anybody who wants to play Mage is going to be able to complain.
Indeed. So I want to point out one last thing about that last room we talked about. It's very similar, and I'm kind of curious. I know it says current target, and I'm curious if that's going to, go to all players who have the temporal beacon or just the one. But if it's just the one, it's a weakened version of the rewind time that the preservation evokers have in retail. But if it's the whole party, it's a semi-nerfed version of Preservation Evoker. And we all know how strong Preservation Evoker rewind time can be in those poop moments.
I would say, based on how this is worded, since it says your current target, that it's only going to be one.
That's what I'm thinking, but how, as we're going to get at some point in this conversation with Mutilate, it doesn't specifically say daggers, but historically it's always been.
We know it's daggers.
So, so like I said, it could be one of those things that's just not worded well. We are actually beta testing this for them, so
100%. 100%.
They're going to figure it out as we go, and it might end up changing, depending on how things go. With all the changes and everything else, I think Mage is in a solid position. It gained a secondary role, um, which I think is awesome. Who would have thought Mage would be a healer? I honestly would have thought Warrior would be a healer first. um, but yeah, I think it's really cool. Never been a big Mage fan, but I might give out healing a try just for the fun. Um, anything else about the Mage that may or may not make you like it? Obviously, you don't speak squishy all that well, so it's not super high on your list. But yeah, anything you can think of that needs to be said about it?
As far as things that need to be said about it, no. I mean, I think as far as objectively, it's incredible and it's going to be great for anybody who wants to play the class. Subjectively, obviously, I don't really play casters because I don't like to wear cloth. I don't mind wearing dresses every now and then in my games, but like just being that guy that's standing in the back, um, the actions per minute's a little low for me. But with some of the new changes, maybe I'll be able to give it a try. Obviously, I will be playing it to be able to give you an objective two pennies, but my subjective opinion will almost always be it's not that it's a bad class, it's that I don't play ranged. So,
Very true. Very true.
with one exception, which we're about to talk about, which is kind of funny,
Because it is the Druid.
the Druid. All right, so first things first, Cat is amazing. It wasn't as good in vanilla because we had no ability to crit with bleeds. We still don't get the ability to crit with bleeds yet, TM. Um, a lot of the problems that the vanilla Druid had are getting fixed. I'm not really going to go into the things I liked about the Druid as in depth previously because I didn't ever really heal. I never really played Bear Druid, and I never got my cat past like level 30 because it just felt way too clunky for me personally to play. However, I do like the mechanics of cat. I like the mechanics of bear. I know that healing on it is very good. It just never really caught my attention enough for me to roll up with it. However, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the changes and why that's really changed because the problem I had with it before is there wasn't enough dots and there wasn't enough support for your mana problems, but now those have been solved. So I put out a video about the Druid. It's either already out or about to come out, depending on when we publish this podcast. But we have this going into balance, and that is way out of character for me because I normally don't play casters, but you get such reduced cast times with the Druid as well as instant cast dots that it feels much smoother to play and it's a lot more fun. So, obviously, I talk about the talents and where you would move stuff and what's good and what's not in the other video, but let's hop right into the um, runes real quick. So we've got Fury of the Storm Rage. Um, reduces the mana cost of Wrath by 100%, and each time you deal damage with Wrath, you have a 12% chance for your next cast of Healing Touch within 15 seconds to be instant. So this is putting you in a position such that if you're using your mana for other things, you can use Wrath to keep it, kind of going and not have to worry about your mana, as well as you're taking damage. Since you're in a position where you can cast Healing Touch instantly, it's not free, but if you're managing your mana, anybody who's played retail, or not retail, but classic knows that if you have a full mana bar and a full health bar, you are wasting resources, and you shouldn't be doing that. You should always be rolling to make sure you're using things as efficiently as possible, as long as that's what you're trying to do. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you how to play your game, but having full mana bars and having full health bars is reducing your efficiency while questing, it's reducing your efficiency while grinding, it's reducing your efficiency while doing dungeons. And this is just going to make you so much more efficient as a boomkin that you may, in fact, never have to stop. This may put us in a position where we are able to literally go non-stop as boomkin, which is going to be amazing because that was never the case up until we switched from mana to astral power, which was way later in the game. Then you have Living Seed for restoration. When you critically heal, you put a Living Seed on the target for 30% of the amount healed. When they take damage, they just heal for 30% more. So that's just amazing, right? Like you just get free heals on top of your crits. Survival of the crittest, survival of the fittest, aka, can't be crit. Reduces the chance you'll critically hit by melee attacks by 6%, reduces all damage taken by 10%. Damage taken is reduced by an additional 10% while in bear form or dire bear form. This is just going to be amazing. And then Wild Strikes, just better Wind Fury Totem. Like, don't ever have your Shaman putting down Wind Fury Totem. Just bring a Feral Druid. When you're in cat form, bear form, or dire bear form, party members within 20 yards gain increased combat ferocity. Each melee hit has a 20% chance of granting the attacker an extra attack, 20% additional attack power. No effect if the party member is already benefiting from Wind Fury Totem. The reason this is better than Wind Fury Totem is Wind Fury Totem is a weapon imbue. So your rogues can't have poisons on their main hand. Your warriors can't have sharpening stones on their main hand. You can't have a weapon imbue on and still benefit from Wind Fury Totem. However, this is an aura buff, which means you can have both of those things, which is literally amazing. And I would say that just let your Shaman use the Grace of Air Totem, get that extra agility, and bring a Druid and just let everybody crit more and benefit more from this.
Absolutely.
You go over to your leg rune. These are all amazing as well. Life Bloom. You guys all know this from futures in the game. Reduces the global cooldown of your rejuvenation and life bloom abilities by half a second, and you gain the life bloom ability. The fact that it reduces your cooldown of rejuve by half a second is amazing. You're going to be able to spam your hot so much better. This is just going to be awesome. And I think this right here by itself will make Elgoog, Mr. Bazel over there, want to play Druid Healer as one of his alts, because this is going to be incredible. Heals
I like Druid heals.
Yeah, exactly. I know you like Druid heals. That's what I'm saying. And this is just going to make it better, right? Heals the target for 45 over 7 seconds. When Life Bloom is complete or is dispelled, instantly heal for 91, and the Druid regains half of the cost of the spell. It can stack up to 3 times on the same target. So it's not going to be mana efficient up front, but if you're in a position where like you're PvPing or you need the extra healing, this is going to be amazing in your repertoire of heals, right? Then we've got Savage Roar, which is another plate for cats to spin, and this is going to add more things to what they have to do, which is going to make power shifting a little harder. So they're really, really going hard on making it different to play a cat this time around. Finishing move that increases physical damage done by 30%, lasts longer per combo point. 30% increased physical damage. Everything they do is physical damage. It's just good. Here you go. 34 seconds of 30% increased damage. And your bleeds will snapshot your buffs. So don't forget that. Skull Bash. Interrupt. We needed it. That's the TLDR for that one. Star Surge. Launch surging stellar energies that cause 57 to 70 arcane damage. Benefit and triggers talents that affect and trigger from Wrath or Starfire. The fact that this goes from both things for Wrath and Starfire, I think it's neat that it gets that, because there is a talent that reduces the cast time of Starfire. Star Surge is going to be instant, I hope. But it also gives it a chance to crit. So an instant arcane ability that deals extra damage and has a chance to crit, count me in, right? Like if this has a low enough cooldown that I can spam Wrath, keep myself alive, Dots, and Star Surge, I may just only play Druid, because that's going to be incredible in PvE and PvP. Because you're going to be able to stay alive, you're going to be able to basically AoE grind, because you're just going to be able to keep your dots up and keep yourself alive, and it's just going to it's going to be different. Like we're going to see how it goes, right? Hand Rune. Lacerate is amazing. Lacerates enemy target, making them bleed for 42 damage over 15 seconds, plus 20% weapon damage per existing application of Lacerate on the target. For the first time in vanilla history, your weapon damage matters for a Druid. Causes a high amount of threat. This effect stacks up to 5 times. So not only that, it starts building up slowly, and then it doubles. They pull a Jay Wilson and they double it. Mangle, this is going to be your DPS one. Mangle the target for 160% normal damage and causes the target to take 30% additional damage from bleed effects and shred for 1 minute. This ability benefits from and triggers all effects associated with Claw and Maul. You're going to be able to reduce the cooldown of it. You're going to, or not the cooldown. You're going to be able to reduce the energy cost of it. You're going to be able to smack them in the face. You're going to be able to increase the damage they take. So if you read this and add it to the other one, these are going to stack. So now you're going to be doing 160% increased bleed damage and 160% increased damage with your shred. The one I'm most excited about, Sunfire, getting another dot, is going to be amazing. Burns the enemy for nature damage and an additional 110 over 12 seconds. In addition, while in bear or cat form, dire bear form, your Moonkin is your Moonfire is replaced by Sunfire bear or Sunfire cat. The spell benefits from triggers all effects associated with Moonfire. So when you're not tanking, if you are cat or bear, you're going to switch this over to Sunfire because you're not going to need the extra damage, and you're going to use this to pull your quest mobs. You're going to use this to keep people in combat and PvP. You're just going to use this to make it better overall quality of life, and it's going to be a lot easier on you. And then down at the bottom here, we have Wild Growth. Heals all of the target player's party members within 15 yards of the target player over 7 seconds. The amount healed is applied quickly at first and then slows down. So this is just going to be an AoE heal, which is something that you've been lacking in vanilla. So Druid heals in general are going to be substantially better than they've ever been. And it's going to be incredible to see it go around that way. That's the last rune. The one thing I would add is if you want to be like, there's going to be a hybrid build that is balance and restoration for PvP that is going to be absolutely incredible because you're going to have several dots that scale with each other. You're also going to be able to heal yourself more effectively, and you're going to be able to switch your runes around such that you can lean one way or the other depending on your group composition if you are PvPing. So it's going to be pretty insane. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how people put this together for the rest of the phases.
Oh yeah. I've never been a very big fan of Druid just because I guess I'm just not a big fan of shapeshifting. But healing has always been pretty fun on the Druid. Just, the healing over time's pretty fun. So with the healing changes, I definitely think that the Resto Druid's going to be kind of fun. Other than that, I don't have much to say about Druid. Yeah. Any closing remarks for the Druid?
No, I just think, again, same as kind of the other classes we've talked about. They've really done some homework and put in some ways to make the weaknesses of this class a lot less apparent, and it's going to play a lot smoother than it was before. And I'm looking forward to seeing what some people can do with this one. This is definitely going to be one of my first string alts. It's in contention, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So one thing, like he just said, they're pointing out some of the weaknesses that the classes have had, and it's not just a couple here and there. No, it's like all 9 classes. Something has changed to the point where like something that was not effective before is now effective. They're trying to make it to where everything kind of has its place instead of, oh, you're a priest, well, okay, you're healing. Oh, you're a warrior, you're tanking. No, there's going to be a mix now, which I think is really cool. And I just remembered that when you were talking about that. On that note, since I was talking about priest, let's move on to the priest.
Priest.
Yeah, one of my favorite classes for sure. But I love Shadow. It's my jam. So why don't you go ahead and go over things that you like about it and dislike about it, and then we'll kind of go from there.
All right. So from the beginning, priests have been known in PvP as face melters. If you are Shadow in PvP, if you get the opportunity to cast on people, you win. Period. You will do so much damage that there is nothing they can do about it. And that looks like it's remaining the same. I think it's actually getting better. This is another one of those classes that I don't have a lot of experience with. So, as far as pros and cons before the changes, I'm not going to talk a lot about them because a lot of the things that I disliked have been fixed with the runes. So, we'll just go ahead and hop right into the runes, starting with the chest
Mhm.
runes. The first one here, Serendipity. Healing with Flash Heal reduces the cast time of your next lesser heal, greater heal, or prayer of healing by 20% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So this is going to give you a this and that playstyle, which is amazing. So using your Flash Heal is going to set you up to be able to use your longer cast heals faster, which is amazing because we know how long those cast times are. Um, I don't know how this is going to work with our mana pools, but I think this particular rune is going to be good because it's going to give you the opportunity to do your spot healing with flash heal, and then if you see or know big damage is about to come in, you can queue up or react to, since your cast time is going to be so much shorter, big hits with your greater heal. So it's going to be really strong. This one I really like, Strength of Soul. Lesser heal, greater heal, and flash heal reduce the remaining duration of weakened soul on targets healed by 4 seconds. So you're just going to be able to bubble more. This is going to be super good for discipline. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got Twisted Fate. Mind Flay and Mind Blast deal increased damage to targets afflicted with your Shadow Word Pain. You're going to have Shadow Word Pain on everything, so you're just going to deal more damage. Void Plague. I like this. Afflicts a target with a disease that causes 116 shadow damage over 18 seconds. Just an extra dot. I like having extra dots. Obviously, I don't think that's going to outperform Twisted Faith, but I do think that Void Plague is going to be fun for questing and stuff. So that's why I picked that one.
Right.
The Lag Rune, Homunculi. Break off splinters of your soul and animate 3 miniature copies of yourself that attempt to attack your current target with a mace, sword, and axe, reducing their attack speed, attack power, and armor, respectively, to the target they hit. This is just going to be a DPS cooldown. Like, here you go. And it's going to reduce their stats, so it's going to make it easier for them to take more damage from everybody else, which is going to be cool.
That's a little bit of utility.
Yeah, exactly. As well as a little bit extra damage. Um,
Yeah.
Power Word Barrier summons a holy barrier to protect all party members at the target location. We know what this does. Reduces their damage taken by 25% and prevents damage from delaying spellcasting. So run in, pop this, start spamming heals. That's basically what that's coming down to. Prayer of Mending places a spell on the target that heals them for 150 the next time they take damage or receive healing. When the healing occurs, it jumps to a nearby party member or raid member within 20 yards, jumps up to 5 times, lasts 30 seconds. After each jump, spell can only be placed on one target at a time. So this is just a little extra. It's kind of unknown where it's going to go, so it's kind of hard to want to be like using this all the time, but I don't think it's a bad one. And then Shared Pain. Your Shadow Word Pain now afflicts up to 2 additional nearby targets within 15 yards. This is just saving you globals. You're just putting your Shadow Word Pain on other targets. It's just
Now,
going to let
notice
you.
it does not say it expends the mana cost either. So it's
Does
just
not.
1 mana cost,
Yep.
3 mobs.
Yep. So you're going to be able to spread your dots a lot easier now, which is one of the problems we had before. So obviously I'm using Shared Pain because if you're questing or doing dungeons, it's going to be the best one. Circle of Healing, we all know what this does. Heals all target players' party members within 15 yards. It's just a circle of healing around them. Mind Seer, this is what I've got selected currently. Causes an explosion of shadow magic around enemy target. Causes 35 to 39 shadow damage every second for 5 seconds to all enemies within 10 yards. So this used to say target, not enemy target. They changed this, and my 2 pennies are because they did not want to be able to get rogues out of stealth with Mindseer in vanilla. Because they move so much slower. I think that would have been a huge detriment to the advantage they do have in PvP. So I think this is why this now says enemy target instead of target.
So even in Wrath, it's enemy target. I think that was a change shortly after Wrath. It may have been in Cataclysm. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Being able to get a rogue out of stealth has not really been a thing until Demon Hunters came out or Hunters. So
no.
that makes sense why that would be a thing.
And then we've got Penance. Launches a volley of holy light at the target, causing damage to an enemy or healing an ally. We all know what this does. It's amazing. It does 3 ticks instantly, and then every 1 second for 2 seconds. This is just
It
good.
also looks cool.
Oh yeah, Penance is amazing. And then Shadow Word Death. This is just the later version of it. A word of dark binding that inflicts damage to the target. If the target is not killed, the caster takes damage equal to the damage inflicted upon the target. We all know what this does. It's an execute, but you can use it at any time. Nobody in their right mind is not going to use this on cooldown in their DPS rotation. Like, they're just not. It's just going to be great. That's the last rune. Unless there's any questions specifically you'd like to ask about Priest, we can move on to the next class, my man.
So it looks like Disc is going to be kind of fun with, well, obviously Penance doesn't have to be Discipline. It can be anything. I think it's really cool that they're making it to where we don't have to pick a specific spec for the runes. And honestly, like I said before, Priest is it's probably my second favorite class in the game, until Demon Hunters, and I really like them. Uh, but yeah, Priest is really fun. They have some decent. They obviously, no matter what you're doing, can heal. Even if you're Shadow, you can still heal. I've been a healer in multiple dungeons, spec as Shadow, all the way up to like level 50. At that point, you're gonna have to start switching over. But you can always off heal. So if your healer you notice isn't doing too well, you can always just pop over, cast a few heals. Obviously, do what you gotta do. And since we're starting at 25, we're not gonna have shadow form. So you're always gonna be in base form. So there's no point to just, or there's no reason not to just kind of off heal, which is also really cool utility. And also you have your power word Fortitude. Um, and also remember that priests historically have been one of the easiest classes to level, um, where they have their bubbles, they have their wands, and they have their dots and everything else. Like, they're really good at self sustain. So even in hardcore and everything else that we've seen going on, they just always do really well. Some would argue they're even better than the hunter. So, keep that in mind. If something that's a little bit easier for you, um, it doesn't have a big learning curve or anything like that. As you level up, you're going to figure these things out really fast. Um, yeah, altogether, they're just pretty fun. Obviously, if you are like Chigg here and don't like mana bars, may not be for you. But if you don't mind a mana bar, they are fun.
I would go ahead and add, on top of what he was saying, when we get to phase 2 and the level cap is 40, Penance is a holy spell. You will not be able to use it in shadow form. But that's
Very valid point.
yep, that's the only caveat to that. All right, so we are up to one of my favorite classes at this point, Soul the Rogue.
Yeah. Never historically been something I enjoyed, but I know you love the daylights out of some rogues. So go ahead and give us your reasoning behind that.
So I have always been a rogue enjoyer. My second character ever to get level capped was a rogue. I've PvP'd, I've PvE'd, I've literally done every meme spec, every good spec, everything. I 1v2'd my way to 1800 during Wrath of the Lich King in Arena. I have played Rogue a lot. I know what I'm doing. I know how it goes. I know how to play it. I could tell you inside out, up and down and backwards, basically word for word what Wowhead says about X, Y, and Z on the Rogue. That being said, there's some really good changes coming around for it. What I like before the changes is the utility of the rogue itself, being able to interrupt, being able to CC, being able to change up your playstyle based on what you want to do. Obviously, combat's always been like the strongest, but there's always been people who have competed with the other specs. Obviously, subtlety's never really been strong for PvE, but subtlety's never really been the PvE spec in old school versions of the game. That being said, the way you can do anything in the game, and especially at lower levels when the percentages aren't as huge, you'll be able to spec in whatever way you want and be able to do some more things. I've actually already put out 2 rogue guides, and I'll be putting out a third shortly on like more specifically PvP things, because this is the one class that I know inside out, frontwards, backwards, top to bottom when it comes to vanilla content, and the other side of that coin is the warrior. So those are the two I specialize in, and I'm looking forward to playing, and those are two classes I am going to be playing, even if they're not my first string character. I will be leveling them, I will be playing them, will be enjoying them. So that being said, everything about it is great. Stealth is great. Being able to get in and do your quests and get out is great. The utility of your poisons is great. Basically everything about the class is good, except for the squishiness and the reliance on weapons. If you don't have good weapons, you don't have a good rogue. Doesn't matter how well you play, after they normalized weapon attack speed and weapon damage and attack power, you used to be able to put on 2 white daggers, be naked, and kill anybody. Now you actually have to have gear that matters, weapons specifically, in order for anything to work properly. So all of that being said, let's go ahead and hop over into the talents. So I was playing with this earlier when I was talking about my what I was going to be doing for the other video that I made today. However, what I would say is, going back to just mutilate spec for PvE, this is where I would be, right? This is the spec I would be using. We're going to use these runes, so I'll go through the runes and talk about it. So the reason this is going to be good, we'll talk about it in a minute, but improved gouge is going to be amazing. There's no reason for improved sinister strike because we're going to use mutilate. Never going to be using sinister strike again after we get mutilate, so I put 2 points in lightning reflexes. Obviously, until you get mutilate, you're going to be using sinister strike, to put those 2 points over there. Improved backstab. This is just giving us 30% increased more crit chance with mutilate at all times, which is just going to be amazing. 5% hit with precision. You got to put 2 points somewhere, so I put them into endurance to reduce the cooldown of sprint and evasion by 1.5 minutes. And then dual wield specialization, you get 10% more damage with your offhand weapon. The other way you could do this is take those last 3 points, because you want to keep all of these, and just put them into malice. So just 3% more flat crit chance. So we'll go over here to the runes. The one I'm going to be using, and the one that's going to be most effective for most things, is going to be Deadly Brew. When you inflict another poison on a target, you also inflict deadly poison. So you do not actually get deadly poison until level 30. They had to figure out a way to make Envenom work. This is what they did. So don't freak out. We do just get deadly poison. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be rank 1, but they may give us another rank that procs with our other poisons. Either way, Deadly Brew is going to be the way to go here. The other runes, just a flesh wound. This is the ability that makes you able to tank. My 2 pennies is versus a physical based boss. The rogue tank is going to be the best tank to have. You take 20% reduced physical damage while Blade Dance is active. Additionally, you have 60% reduced chance to be, or 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks, and threat generated by all your actions is massively increased. Your feign ability is replaced with Tease, which taunts the enemy to attack you. Taunts the target to attack you, but has no effect if the enemy is already attacking you. Quick Draw. This is basically just a ranged slow that's going to give you a combo point. Draw your ranged weapon, fire a quick shot at an enemy, causing normal ranged weapon damage and reducing the target's movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Quick Draw benefits from all the talented effect to trigger modify Sinister Strike. So this is basically going to be keeping you from getting kited as badly, so it's going to be great. Slaughter from the Shadows. This is awesome for Dagger Rogues specifically if you want to go down the assassination tree, and I think this is going to be very, very, very strong later on once we can get Seal Fate and stuff. So I think this is going to be incredible. Reduces the cost of your backstab and ambush abilities by 20. Does not apply the mutilate. So this is just going to be strong. It's just going to be strong. But for now, we're sticking on Deadly Brew. So leg runes, between the eyes, ranged kidney shot. Stuns, deals damage. That's it. Blade Dance, finishing move that increases your parry, lasts longer, and grants more parry chance per combo point. You're just going to keep this up all the time while you're tanking. And then Envenom. This is just the best finisher we have. Finishing move that deals instant poison damage based on your deadly poison doses on the target. You do not want to do this without 5 poison, but any good rogue knows, you're going to use your first combo points to get up your slice and dice anyway. So by the time you have enough combo points to envenom, you're going to have 5 stacks of deadly poison, right? You have 75% increased frequency of applying instant poison for 1 second plus an additional 1 second per combo point. It's just amazing, right? And then 1 combo point deals amount of damage, all the way up to 5 that deals 200 damage. This is good because does not get affected by armor. It is nature damage, which is amazing. So we're going to select that. And then the hand rune. These are all incredible. Mangaush. Instantly strike with your offhand for normal offhand weapon damage and increase your chance to parry by 10% for 10 seconds. You're just going to keep this on cooldown. It benefits from all talents and effect that trigger or modify Sinister Strike. So it's going to cost 2 less, and it's going to be on cooldown all the time, and it's going to just be giving you 10% increased parry. It's going to be amazing. Mutilate. Instantly attacks with both weapons for 100% weapon damage, plus an additional 20 with each weapon. Damage increased by 20% against poison targets. Awards 2 combo points. Mutilate benefits from all talents and effects that trigger from and modify backstab unless otherwise specified. You will notice this does not say requires daggers. Historically, Mutilate has not said requires daggers. However, when you equip weapons and you try to press Mutilate, it will say I can't do that. And then when you hover it, it will say requires daggers. This may just be an oversight. I do not think you're going to be able to use weapons that are not daggers for Mutilate. You never have been able to. The tooltip and other versions of the game have not said requires daggers. I was actually going to make a video about that, and then when I started doing some research, I was like, okay, so I do remember this, and then I went and I was checking the other versions of the game. It historically has not said in the tooltip that it requires daggers, so I have no reason to believe that you can do this with any other weapons. However, if that is the case, everybody roll a rogue, and that's TLDR, and that's why I don't think that's a thing. All right. Saber Slash. This is better Sinister Strike, and this is going to be used by anybody who wants to do anything that is not Hemo Rogue if you're PvPing. And not Dagger Rogues, because Dagger's OP. Viciously slash an enemy for 130% weapon damage and cause the target to bleed for 11 damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Stacking up to 3 times awards 1 combo point. Benefits from all talents and effects that trigger from or modify Sinister Strike. So depending on if this does more base damage than Sinister Strike, what you'll do, you'll keep up 3 stacks of this, and then you will Sinister Strike, unless this just hits harder than Sinister Strike, and then you're just going to only use this, and you're going to take Sinister Strike off your bar, unless it costs so much energy that it's not worth. We'll have to figure that out later. Shadow Strike, amazing. Teleport behind your target and strike, causing 150% weapon damage to the target. Must be stealth towards 1 combo point. This is just good. Period. Good. Love it. It's amazing. This is going to be so much fun for PvP. I will be doing this all the time. It's going to be awesome. Now, this also does not say requires a dagger. I don't know if it's going to require a dagger. If it does, cool. If it doesn't, cool. If it does not, then it's going to be a little strong, but it's also only stealth, so we'll see. And it also depends on what the range is. Since it only awards 1 combo point, it leads me to believe that it may be able to use any weapon, but I guess we'll see in a couple of days, right? And then Shiv. Instantly attack with your offhand weapon to deal normal offhand weapon damage with a 100% chance to apply the poison from your offhand weapon to the target. Slower weapons require more energy. Awards 1 combo point. Shiv benefits from all talents that trigger from or modify Sinister Strike. So Shiv is a utility spell. If you use Shiv, it is going to be in PvP, most likely. I have no reason to believe you'd ever use this in PvE. And it's going to be specifically for weapon swapping to get mind numbing or crippling, whatever one you're not wearing, onto whatever target you're currently fighting. That's basically the only thing this is going to be used for. And then you're going to have your weapon swap macro to go back to your normal weapon and go back to what you were normally doing. That's all this is going to be for, is to instantly get that poison. Bang. You got it, right? That's just what it's going to be for. So we got Mutilate there. I think Hemo Rogue is going to be super strong. I think like Hemo Rogue with Envenom is going to be amazing. So we're going to be able to spec this such that you can get hemorrhage and cold blood. Uh, I don't know how cold blood is going to interact with envenom because the tooltip does not say it's going to make it auto crit, so we'll have to see. Also, there's some shenanigans you can do if you're mutilate spect or if you're backstab spect, so you can have improved ambush while you're PvPing. When I make the PvP guide, we're going to talk all about that. But in the meantime, that's the rogue. Is there anything I didn't cover that you'd like to talk about, Basil, or anything else you would like to add to the rogue discussion?
Honestly, Rogue is my least favorite class. It's always been something that I've just never played. I like the theory behind being in stealth and all that good stuff, but like historically, I've never been able to do it. Um, but you know, tanking on a Rogue sounds kind of interesting. I might give that a shot just to kind of see. Um, but for me, it's the with the poison management and the combo management and everything else. Um, that is one thing you have to keep in mind if you are wanting to play a rogue in Season of Discovery. Is you are going to have to manage a couple different things. Um,
Energy and combo
but
points being the two major ones.
yes, um, a lot of people love them, and they are a PvPer's dream. People love to PvP with the rogue because stealth up on somebody and basically you do like 3 attacks and they're dead. And that's always interesting to see. However, I've been on the receiving end of that way too many times, and I think I just have a dislike of rogues because I'm squishy. Uh, but it sounds like there's some good changes coming to the rogue. So hopefully, people who do like it continue to enjoy, everything that's being added and everything else. It seems like you like a lot of the changes that have happened. Uh, but yeah, I don't have much to add to Rogue, and it seems like you really like it. So that looks like it might be a front runner for now.
Oh, it's
Um,
definitely at the front of the line. I'd also like to ask any questions you think I should still cover that maybe for somebody who's not played the rogue or maybe considering the rogue that you could think of.
um, explain how combo points work and how they do not carry over to other targets. They are target specific in
Yes,
classic.
that's a really good point. So when you have um, in future iterations of the game, the combo points are attached to the player, not the target. Up until I think Kata, they're attached to the target, not the player. So, what you have to do is you have to manage your combo points and your energy such that either your last ability that uses combo points finishes the mob off, so you're back to zero with just energy regenerating, or you have enough energy to right before the mob dies you are able to use a buff ability, so you would want to be able to give yourself slice and dice with the points that that mob that's about to die has on it. For example, if you have two combo points, the mob's about to die, there's no reason to use those two combo points on an envenom when you could just get a couple more seconds of slice and dice to start the next fight with, so you can have your first little foray into that next fight be with your attack speed buff. So there's little nuances like that. Pooling your energy doesn't come back smoothly. It comes back in chunks of 20. And you have to kind of learn this ebb and flow of, do I have enough energy for what I want to do? Do I have enough combo points to finish off the mob? Is it okay to use a 4-point ability here? Is it okay to use a 3-point ability here? Do I just want to use a 1-point sinister or a 1-point slice and dice to get the fight started? Like, there's a lot of these things that you have to learn before you can play the class effectively. And I think that was a really good question.
Yeah, it definitely has a steep learning curve. And that may be a reason why I didn't stick with it too well. My learning curve isn't very good. But once you get past the learning curve, a lot of people really, really dig Rogue. Um, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else in particular, since you are very knowledgeable with the Rogue, that might benefit a new player. Kind of go through because you've had the experience with said quests, the class quests, and how far ahead level you should be, or should you do them at level, or you know any input you have on that, because I've heard stories about the class quests for Rogue.
Okay, so specifically the class quest he's talking about is the quest to get your poisons. Do not attempt to do it by yourself at level 20. You will fail unless you do it flawlessly, and even then your chance of success is 33.333333, repeating, of course. Um, anyway, if you get that, you've been around a while. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're going to leave you hanging. But my honest 2 cents on that, if you're doing it by yourself, do not even attempt it until level 22 when you get your vanish ability, because then it becomes trivial because you can do what you need to do. You can grab the thing, you can vanish, and then you can just get out of dodge. Otherwise, it is going to be very difficult to do solo unless you have like best of the best gear and you play flawlessly, or you have friends helping you. Obviously, we are going to be in an environment where we are going to be having people who will help us do these things. Um, and there are going to be variations that are going to make it easier or harder depending on what you're doing. But once you get to the point where you can get your poisons, get them soon if you have help. If not, go quest until you're 22 and then come back and get them later, because it's going to be very, very, very difficult and frustrating to be able to get them by yourself at level 20.
Yeah. I heard the horror stories when people were playing on hardcore on the Rogue, and I saw so many people, just complaining about the class quest and how they wished they could do it right then and there, but they knew they couldn't because they would die and lose their character. Obviously, Season of Discovery, they have not said it's permadeath, so we should be good to just die and try again. But if dying over and over is not your jam, that might not be that might be something you want to hold off on. Other than that, I think that kind of gets the Rogue out of the way. Um, Definitely seems like you're interested. Definitely seems like I might play it a little bit. Um, but for now, let's I guess go ahead and move on to the Paladin,
This is
Mister or Mrs.
ooh,
Tanak.
Mrs. Tanak. This is actually my second highest runner right now as far as my 2 pennies, and obviously Basil and I are going to talk about it and kind of narrow my choices down and pick my goal today by the end of this podcast is to pick my main and my first alt, as well as race, because we are going to play together on our first characters. um, so I made my Paladin video today. As you can see, we will talk about this in a moment, but I have DPS runes and all of my gear is stamina and intellect, and I'm spec holy. So we'll talk about that in a moment as well. I'll give you a little bit of a TLDR since I have a video about this coming out in the next couple of days. But so some of the things that I liked about it previous to the changes, you can AoE grind. They're very effective after you get to the capability of being able to do so. Um, I disliked that they had no real strong um, DPS capabilities. I disliked that their basic job was to be a buff bot. I really enjoyed that they were really good single target healers. They were really strong healing in general. And then there is a breakpoint with gear where you literally have infinite mana because you will never, ever, 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 ever not crit with a heal because you get so much intellect. You have almost 100% crit, right? And you get back your mana cost for the heal when you crit in your talent tree. So there's a lot of things to really enjoy about the Paladin. Reckoning is one of the most fun things in the game. Seal of Command, Seal Twisting was fun. Being able to just bonk somebody with a two-hander and laugh was fun. Your utility is amazing. You can give other people bubble. You can give other people Hand of Freedom. You can cleanse. You can heal. You can DPS. You can tank. You can literally do it all. And now with the changes, you can do it all effectively. So originally, when I first made this character, I had it set up with strength and agility and stamina gear for more DPS. And then I really put some thought into it. And I thought, no, I'm going to go holy and I'm going to get tank abilities. And the reason being is because as soon as you hit level 20, you can literally AoE grind now. You don't have to wait till 40. And we can talk about why a little bit when we're going over the talents. But that's why I changed up what I was doing. You'll get a rundown of this gear if you watch the other video. What we will do is in the description of this video after or before the timestamps, I'm not sure, we will keep an up-to-date list of all of the class-specific videos that we have on the channel to go along with it. So if you get somewhere, you can be like, oh, hey, I'm going to go check that out. And then you can just click the link in the description. So moving on over to it, you can see here I am spec'd holy, but I have runes for tanking, and I will tell you why. So in Holy, you get Divine Intellect, increases your total intellect by 10%. So this is just infinitely scaling with your gear. Improves Seal of the Righteous. Your damage does not primarily come from your weapons. It primarily comes from your Seal of the Righteous when you play like this. So you just want a super fast one-hander. I have Healing Light. Increases the amount healed by your Holy Light and Flash of Light spells by 12% because increased healing. Because if I'm not grinding, I'm going to be healing you while you tank on your Warlock. Consecration. You just consecrate the ground and deal damage over 8 seconds. This is huge, right? This is going to keep us going like mad and keep us killing things non-stop. We're going to be able to AoE grind. Got 1 point here in improved lay on hands because it just reduces the cooldown and make it a little stronger. Gives you some more armor. And then over here, Illumination. This is the ability I was telling you about, that when you crit, it has a 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100% chance to refund its mana when you crit with a heal spell. Until you get a couple more points in this, obviously you can use Improved Blessing of Wisdom just to make your Blessing of Wisdom stronger. But this is going to be a really good way to get started as a Paladin and to start being able to solo things in a manner where you can just pull as much as you can literally pull and then mow them down AoE-wise. So we'll talk about the runes real quick. Aegis, this is what makes this possible. So originally, Readout increases your chance to block attacks up to 30% with 5 points after being the victim of a critical strike. You got to be crit for that. That's not super good. Aegis, increase your block value by 30% and damaging melee and range attacks against you have a 10% chance to increase your chance to block by 30% for 10 seconds or 5 blocks. So, if you have enough mobs that you are getting hit enough times per second, this will literally be up, period. You will always have a 30% chance to block, which is incredible because it's 10% chance when you get hit, no longer when you get crit. So this is just amazing. We have Divine Storm, which every rep paladin is going to have this on. An instant weapon attack that causes 110% of weapon damage to up to 4 enemies within 8 yards. Divine Storm heals up to 3 party or raid members, 25% of the damage caused. Horn of Lordaeron. This is what I'm going to be using when I'm inside of dungeons because it's basically Horn of Winter. The Paladin blows a Horn of Lordaeron, which increases the total strength and agility of all party members within 30 yards by 17. Lasts 2 minutes, exclusive with Blessing of Might. And then Seal of Martyrdom. This is filling you with Holy Spirit for 30 seconds, causing each of your melee attacks to deal 30% weapon damage up to 3 nearby targets. So it's giving you an AoE cleave all the time. But you lose health equal to 10% of the damage inflicted. While this seal is active, your party members within 40 yards each gain mana equal to all damage you take. Unleashing the seal's energy will judge an enemy, instantly causing 70% weapon damage at the cost of health equal to 10% of the damage inflicted. So, this is going to be, depending on what your party composition is, as Rhett, you're either going to play Divine Stormers or Seal of Martyrdom. If you need your party to have more mana regeneration, you're going to play Seal of Martyrdom. If you're just pumping and you don't have to worry about being a utility bot for your party, you're going to use Divine Storm. So for me, it's Aegis unless we're in a dungeon. Over here on the leg rune, we have several good options. You've got Avenger's Shield. We all know what this does. You chuck the shield, you deal damage, it slows them 10 seconds, right? Divine Sacrifice, 30% all damage taken by party members within 30 yards is redirected to the Paladin for 20 seconds, or for 10 seconds. Damage which reduces the Paladin below 20% health will break the effect. So when you know something's coming, you bubble and then you Divine Sacrifice. And then you just reduce the damage everybody takes for the entire duration, which is going to be amazing. Exorcist just lets you use Exorcism on everybody and gets 100% crit chance on demons and undead. Inspiration Exemplar, it makes the Paladin a Tremor Totem, makes it where it dispels sleep and fear. And then we get a kick for PvP, we get Rebuke. So when I'm out in the world, I'm either going to be using Avenger's Shield or Exorcist, depending on what I'm doing and where I'm at. If I'm somewhere where there are a lot of undead, obviously I'm going to use Exorcist. If I'm somewhere where it's not undead, like if I'm farming Murlocs or something, I'm going to use Avenger's Shield. Um, and in dungeons and raids, I'm going to switch it over to Divine Sacrifice. Since we just have to be out of combat to change them, it's going to be amazing and easy to switch over. So, moving on to the hand slot, we only have 3 options. We got Beacon of Light. Everybody knows Beacon of Light if you've ever played a Paladin. You make your beacon target, and whenever you heal somebody else, the beacon also gets healed. Gives us a little bit of AoE utility, not really AoE, but lets us heal more than one target, which is going to make our party healing better for 5-mans, which is primarily where we've struggled as Paladins in the past. Crusader Strike, this is what I'm always going to have on unless I'm in a dungeon. If I'm in a dungeon, it's going to be Beacon of Light. If I am not in a dungeon, it's going to be Crusader Strike. An instant strike that causes 75% weapon damage and regenerates 2% of your maximum mana. I am purposefully stacking mana, so my Crusader Strike will give me back more mana so I can get more seals, more judgments, and more consecrations. I'm literally set up to AoE grind as efficiently as possible and do as much damage over as much time to as many targets as I can possibly get around my Paladin. And I think this is going to be incredible. And I think there's going to be a time later in this game's life cycle where AoE grinding as a holy Paladin that is subspec into protection is going to make the most gold in the game because you're going to be able to solo dungeons that we weren't able to solo before because of the runes. And then Hand of Reckoning. Taunt the target to attack you. We have a taunt now. Na, 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 na. While you know this ability, the threat bonus of Righteous Fury is increased to 80%. It is normally 60, so you get a little bit extra. Righteous Fury causes you to gain mana when healed by others, up to 25% of the amount healed, which is a talent later in the game, which is amazing. It's going to keep your mana up. Additionally, when Righteous Fury is active, damage that takes you below 35% health is reduced by 20%. So they took all of the talents from later in the game in Wrath, rolled them all into Hand of Reckoning, and said, hey, you are now an effective tank in dungeon situations. You're going to be the best AoE tank, but you're still going to struggle in single target. Here you go. So now we have a taunt. We're going to be able to do good AoE threat. It's just going to be good, right? It's like get consecration, then start going down the protection tree. It's going to be incredible. It's just going to be good, and there's really nothing we can say about it. So I'm going to leave this on Crusader Strike because I want this for my future reference. But this is what I think about the Paladin and where I'm going to be with it. Obviously, there's 2 more specs to talk about, but this is what I think is going to be the most fun and most effective, and it's a good place to start for everybody.
Oh yeah, with the AoE farming for sure is going to be really fun because I know how you like to just mindlessly grind mobs for hours on end.
Indeed.
So I can see you just after you get everything set up, just making all the gold and getting me all the bags so that I can tank all the dungeons and we can do all the things with all your money.
There you go. We
Sounds
can
like
do
a
all
good
the
time to
things
me.
with all of my money. Yeah, I like
Exactly.
it. Let's go.
Yep. Hey, I'm keeping you alive in the dungeon, all right?
Hey, no, I'm keeping you alive. Let's be real here. I beat a healer.
We'll both be there.
There you go.
But no, in all seriousness, Paladin's always been kind of in that weird spot in vanilla, just because, like he said in the beginning, they've basically been buff bots, and that's never really piqued my interest. But with the changes, Paladin actually does seem fairly interesting. Rhett's actually going to be able to DPS finally, even though it's supposed to have been the DPS spec. And then, Beacon of Light's going to make healing so much better, like with the multi-target and everything else. And then with the tanking just being... Honestly, they could have left everything else off of the Hand of Reckoning and just given you the taunt. And that would have made Paladins viable as tanks. But then when 100%. They bundled all the other stuff in, it just makes them really good.
Sweetens the pot, yeah.
Yeah. And then, with that, that AOE or not AOE, but the man, I'm drawing a blank on what it was, but the buff that you give everybody, the Horn of Winter thing,
Yes. Yep.
the Horn of Lordaeron, that's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool because anybody that's played a Death Knight knows that you basically just Horn of Winter, honestly, with a Death Knight, basically on cooldown for the runic power, but with the Paladin and stuff, that's just gonna you're just flat giving everybody on top of your blessings and everything else. Now you're just giving them extra, you know, strength and stuff. I mean, obviously you can't use Blessing of Might but yeah, um, you know, Paladin seems like it's going to be in a solid spot finally, which I think is really cool. Definitely high up there, even on my alt list with the changes and everything else. I'm definitely going to be giving it a shot. Anything in particular you can think of that might help new players? Anything that might be an issue in the beginning that gets better, or anything like that? Any tips you may have?
You are going to be auto attacking a lot for the first part of the game. It gets better, I promise. The fun of the gameplay is not the killing of the mobs, it's the managing of all of the things you've got going on. Obviously, if you go ret, now the way it plays is going to be a lot different because you actually get more buttons to push. But at first, up until about level 10, do not get disheartened by not having much to do, because all you're going to be doing, you're going to be seal, judge, seal. And then you're going to wait till the mob dies. Seal, judge, seal. And then you're going to wait till the mob dies. And then once you get Crusader Strike, you're obviously going to be able to add that to it. Once you get these other things, you're going to be able to add those to it. But in the beginning, it is going to start off slow, but it does get better, I promise. All three specs are going to be super viable. If it is your first time playing a Paladin, I would recommend just picking up the runes that are for ret specifically, grabbing a two-hander, and just mowing through mobs. You are going to be a literal avatar of destruction the way they are giving us these abilities. You're hardly ever going to run out of mana. You're going to be able to stay at full HP all the time because your cooldown on your Divine Storm is going to be short enough that it's going to heal you up a lot. Even if you do get low, you are going to have enough mana regeneration from your Crusader Strike and stuff as long as you're gearing properly. Hint, stack intellect. You can't scale strength early. You don't have enough. So get a good weapon that's got good base weapon damage, stack intellect, and you will hardly ever have to stop. And it's just going to be incredibly powerful, incredibly strong, incredibly fun, incredibly fast. And you are going to literally show up so many other people with minimum effort, because with Paladin, when you're playing, it's really, really, really new player friendly in this version, in this iteration, because you have to do two things. Keep up your seal, push other buttons when they light up. That's it. And you will be topping DPS meters.
Indeed. Um, so with all that said, I think it's finally time for the shaman, our last class for the night, and definitely definitely now a jack of all trades, and I'll let you go through what all the trades are, and kind of give us an explanation.
All right, so we have the Shaman, which I do believe is in the running for most improved and is likely going to be the strongest melee DPS by leaps and bounds. And I'm going to tell you why. So, for starters, your itemization from the beginning, and this is before any changes, has always been interesting because you want to have strength and agility. Agility gives you crit. It does not give you attack power. Strength gives you attack power. It does not give you crit. So, it's always been this weird balancing act of, do I have enough attack power? Do I have enough crit? And then now we're going to have melee hunters giving us the stat buff. So we are less incentivized to just get straight attack power on gear, and we're more incentivized to get strength because it's going to scale with our buffs. Some of the other things I really liked about it before, there's two very distinctive, very fun ways to play. Elemental, super bursty, super fun, super good in PvP. You literally can delete people in a couple of casts. Really bad mana, so you can't really play them in PvE very well unless it's a really short fight. Enhancement, totem twisting, keeping up your different buffs by dropping this, doing that, flipping things around. Being able to have a big honking two-hander and then pray to RNGesus that you get a proc and then you can just one-shot people. It's just amazing. There's a lot of different ways to play it. Once you get up higher in levels, you got really good mobility with Ghost Wolf before you get a mount. You have a lot of different ways to slow. You have a lot of different ways to interrupt. You have a lot of different ways to deal DPS. You have shocks. You have totems. You have weapons. You have spells. Like, you just have all of the utility all of the time. You're able to do every role in the game. You're able to do everything in the game. And there's just a lot behind the flavor of the class and what you can do. And now with the runes coming in with it, it's getting so much stronger and so much more specialized in each of its roles that it's going to be even better. And I made a video about enhancement specifically and why it's going to be so good. As you can see, I have a lot of greens on my character sheet here instead of like blues and stuff from dungeons, because the itemization is such that this is going to be incredibly strong and make it even better than it would have been with the blues, because stacking agility from blues or stacking flat strength from blues isn't as strong as stacking some of the tiger gear and just being able to get all of your stats all around at once. So you go down here and you look, we're at 15% crit chance, right? And that's a lot. And then we've got some attacks, some attack power. This says 0 hit, but that's not correct, obviously. But you just get, like, there's this sense of, like, you get really good sense of progression when you're playing an enhancement shaman. So with all that being said, let's hop over here and I'll show you kind of what I did with the talents, and then we'll talk about the runes. So with the talents, increase your maximum mana by 5%. First thing you do is get 5 points in Thundering Strikes, and then as soon as you can get Ghost Wolf, you get improved Ghost Wolf to reduce the cast time, and then you get improved Lightning Shield. You're only going to use improved Lightning Shield until you get Water Shield, and I'll talk about why in a minute when we get to the runes. And then you're going to go down to Flurry and move those 3 points wherever you want. Flurry is just going to give you increased attack speed after a crit. It does not say after a melee crit or a spell crit. It says a crit. So both of them count to give you Flurry. First things first, the very thing on this list that makes me more excited than anything is the very first chest rune, which is Dual Wield Specialization. Increases your chance to hit with both spells and melee attacks by 5% while dual wielding, and your Storm Strike ability now hits with both weapons while dual wielding. So Storm Strike is our level 40 talent, so we don't get that for a really long time. But the rest of those, having 5% hit right out the gate, you only have to have 8% hit for your abilities to never miss. So that's going to be amazing. Being able to dual wield is going to be awesome. It's just going to solve so many of the problems that you have as enhancement. Part of the problem is you don't get to hit frequently enough to actually benefit from having a 20% chance for your Wind Fury to proc. It's just going to solve a lot of the problems that you inherently had as enhancement. And then that's just going to make it better in general. And then we've got Healing Rain. Selects target area for 15 yards around the target and heals all the target's party members for 20 seconds, which is amazing. Overload gives your Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Healing Wave, and Lava Burst spells a 33% chance to cast a second similar spell on the same target, no additional cost that causes half the damage or healing and no threat. We already have spells that do this, so like if you get a double proc on a Chain Lightning, you might just delete 3 people in a battleground. That's going to be amazing. You get a double, like you get a proc on a Lava Burst, auto crit, double auto crit Lava Burst, boom! Okay, there goes another player. Like, it's just going to be insane. And then Shield Mastery. Each time you block, you generate mana equal to 4% of your maximum mana, and you gain armor equal to 30% of your shield's armor value, stacking up to 5 times. So 150% of your shield's armor will stack up. You also always increase your block chance by 10% and your block value by 15%. So this is the rune that keeps your mana up while you're tanking and also makes it where you can actually block more often and increases the amount of damage that you block. So we're going to pop over here to the leg runes, Ancestral Guidance for the next 10 seconds. 25% of your damage converted to healing up to 3 by 3 nearby party members, and 100% of your healing is converted to damage on your most recent flame shock target. So this is going to be a decent utility spell for either side. You can pump more with your resto, or you can off heal a little bit with your enhancement or elemental. My 2 pennies is enhancement's going to use this the most, because you're going to be able to pop ancestral guidance and then start chain lightning, right? And it's just going to help heal up everybody. Earth shield, this is basically for resto for the most part. Protects the target with an earthen shield, reducing casting or channeling time lost when damaged by 30% and causing attacks to heal the shielded target by 100. The effect can only occur once every few seconds. 3 charges last 10 minutes. You can only have 1 elemental shield on a target at a time. This is just going to be basically periodic healing that you don't have to do anything except for 1 global for. It's going to be really good. Shamanistic Rage reduces all damage you take by 20%, and you generate mana every 1 second for 15 seconds. Mana generated per second is equal to 15% of your attack power, 10% of your spell power, 6% of your healing power, whichever value is greatest. This is going to be good for every single spec as long as you're itemizing your character correctly. And depending on the cooldown of Shamanistic Rage, as enhancement, you may never, ever, ever have to stop. As long as you're stacking some attack power in some of your spots, you may never have to stop, which to me just sounds amazing. And then Way of the Earth, this is what enables you to be able to tank, which I think is incredible. And this might be enough to talk you into us just rolling 2 Orc Shamans on the 30th. While Rockbiter weapon is active on your main hand weapon, you deal 100% increased threat, gain 30% increased health, take 10% reduced damage, gain 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks, and Earth Shock taunts targets to attack you, has a separate cooldown from other shocks, but has its range reduced to melee. Holy crap, that's a lot of text to say you a tank now, boy.
Yup. And to preface this, paladins have, or not paladins, but shamans have been able to tank. I have tanked dungeons on a shaman in classic, but that right there makes you 100% viable. So, yeah.
Yeah, increasing your health, increasing the amount of damage the reduction of damage you take, and giving you a proper taunt. Obviously, smacking something with with Rockbiter and then Earth Shocking it is basically a taunt, but now it is a taunt, so you don't even have to worry about it. So, moving on to the hand runes, which is probably the most interesting of this group. We have Lava Burst, which is Lava Burst from later in the game. You know it, you love it, it's amazing. You hurl a molten lava ball at the target, dealing 198 to 256 fire damage, which, if you're spec properly, will be over 600 damage. If your Flame Shock is on the target, Lava Burst will deal a critical strike, and that is why. So you can, just increase that. It's going to be awesome. Lava Lash. You charge your offhand weapon with lava, instantly dealing 100% of offhand weapon damage, and dealing the damage is increased by 20% if your offhand weapon is enchanted with Flame Tongue. So early on, this may be okay. I have a hot take on this one, that Lava Lash is probably not going to be useful unless our mana management is really, really, really good. I'm personally not even going to attempt it until I see if our mana management is actually on point. I'm going to be using Water Shield because I know that's going to increase my mana, and I know I'm not going to while I'm questing. Lava Lash may be good. 100% offhand weapon damage may be good. However, I don't think having Flame Tongue is ever going to be better than if you're using Lava Lash with Wind Fury and giving yourself just another instant attack that can proc Wind Fury. I don't think it's ever going to be better to have Flame Tongue on there instead of Wind Fury until, Flame Tongue's only going to be used until we get Wind Fury, in my opinion. We have Molten Blast.
You don't get Wind Fury for a minute, right?
You get Wind Fury level 30.
Okay.
So what I think would be, like, if we do get to do this, I do believe that a enhancement shaman with a feral druid in the party that has ferocious inspiration will literally be the single strongest DPS in the game, period, at all times. And then we have Molten Blast. which is an AoE conal thing for tanks. But I think if your tank is strong enough and you are good enough at watching your threat, that this may actually be good for enhancement DPS. Blast enemies in a cone in front of you for 39 to 54 fire damage. This ability generates a high amount of threat. Flame Shock periodic damage has a 10% chance to reset the cooldown on Molten Blast. So this is just a frontal cone attack that is AoE that is going to cause a high amount of threat for you tanks out there. And for those of you who are good at threat management, this actually may be good for your DPS rotation as well. Obviously, you're not going to spam it on cooldown, but you may be able to put this into your rotation and it be really strong. And if you've got a really good warrior tank that actually knows how to use their thunderclap and stuff, you might actually be able to just spam this. It could be really good. And then last but not least, down here we have Water Shield, which is my preferential right now until we see how we're going to be able to handle our mana situation. The caster is surrounded by 3 globes of water, granting you 1% of your maximum mana per 5 seconds. When a spell, melee, or range attack hits the caster, 4% of the maximum mana is restored to the caster. This expends 1 water globe. They had a typo there. Only 1 globe, another typo. Wow. Will be activated every few seconds, last for 10 minutes. Only 1 elemental shield can be active on the shaman at a time. So if our mana management is bad, we're using Water Shield. If our mana management is good, we can use Lava Blast, Lava Lash, or Molten Blast. Those are going to be our 3 options, but it is Water Shield until proven otherwise, in my opinion. That is all the runes. That's where I'm at with this. Do you have any other questions or any more thoughts or concerns about the shaman?
Honestly, not super not anything really drastic or anything. Now I do want to say that with the changes to the tanking, I've always liked the idea of a shaman tank. I've ever since I found out that they could wear shields, I was like, hold on a second, that means they can tank, right? And then I was told no. But the fact that now they're getting the tanking ability, it does make it much more appetizing to roll a shaman and tank as well. Um, Questions wise, I know uh, you start off pretty strong with a shaman, but then it tapers off. Your scaling changes drastically. Is there any input you have on how to kind of offset some of that scaling to where it's more manageable, or any tips or anything you have for you know post 25? Obviously this is just going to be 25 at first, but anything past level 25 that might be beneficial for people to know in the future.
2 things. First thing, the runes solve that problem. That is no longer a problem. Period. That won't be a thing. Secondly, use a one-hander and a shield, preferably a dagger, with flame tongue weapon until you can dual wield. And then you dual wield. And you will scale infinitely till the end of time. Because as long as you have the capability to get weapons that have competitive DPS, you will never, ever, 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 ever fall behind. Ever again. Because the problem with fighting with the shaman was that you had to rely on RNG if you wanted to be enhancement to be able to kill mobs efficiently and effectively. Um, Being able to dual wield solves that problem because now you attack so quickly and you scale in a manner such that under no circumstance will you continually swinging your 2 weapons put you at a disadvantage. You will never have to worry about not being able to keep up with what the mob is doing because with a 2-hander you either one hit them or you don't get a proc. With 2 one-handers you won't always one shot them when you get a proc, but you will get procs so frequently that you will always be able to outrace the mobs that you are fighting. And then the way the elemental runes work, lava burst in specific, you will literally be able to delete mobs as you're questing. You'll still have to sit down and drink. Your mana problems aren't solved, but you're never going to be in a position where you have to rank 1 frost shot kite anymore because you will literally be able to delete the mobs. You'll be able to be using Overload with your Lightning Bolt and with your Lava Burst. And as long as you had a reasonable amount of mana when you started the fight, let's say at least 40%, I have no reason to believe that starting the fight with Chain Lightning, immediate global into Flame Shock, immediate global into Lava Burst, that mob's going to die. There's no doubts.
Indeed. So that makes me a little bit more willing to Shaman for sure.
Oh no,
Because
any concerns you had about Shaman before, the runes have fixed them. There are no more
basically that's
concerns.
how it is with each class. But yeah,
Yeah, but that's why I
Shaman was
said
in that very weird spot.
yeah, that's why I said specifically that the Shaman is most impacted, because it
Yeah.
is literally like it went from this poorly scaling, it's hard to get it to 60 class to um powerhouse from the time you can dual wield or cast lava burst until 60. Like there's going to be no point during this leveling process that this is going to feel bad to play.
Okay. Other than that, I have no more questions or anything about the shaman. I think we've kind of went over everything. So now we're going to get to the real meat and bones of what this conversation's really about, and that is what you are going to play. Um, so we've heard your input on each of the classes. You are fairly knowledgeable at just about everything except the squishies, and even then you still know enough to get by. Um, with that being said, there are a couple classes that I would, from our conversation, go ahead and say you're probably not going to want to play, and that goes with how much you talked about them, how much you sounded enthused about certain things and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and say Mage. You like the utility of Mage. You don't seem to care too much for anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and say Mage is probably off the table for now. That might be
100%.
an alt later, but definitely not your main. Um, Priest, same thing.
Oh yeah.
Almost the exact same conversation on that. Warlock, I think, is mostly a me thing. You obviously like it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough for you to want to main it. Um, Now, on that note, that basically just got rid of all three of the cloth wares. Uh,
Yep.
um, when it comes to leather wares, we have um, the druid and the rogue.
Druid and the Rouge.
Um,
Yep.
you seem to be pretty well interested in the boom chicken
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the druid, but other than that, you were talking about cat a little bit, but you didn't have as much. You didn't seem to have as much drive on the druid. So I'm gonna go ahead and say druid. Let's set it to the side too.
Okay.
Um, Now with rogue, on the other hand, the other leatherware, you love rogue. You love the flavor. You love everything about it. You like the PvP and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and put that at the top for right now.
I think that's fair.
Um, yeah. So now we're going to go to male, which is our hunter and shaman.
And Shaman.
Hunter, very short conversation. You've already done a video and everything else. You obviously like the hunter, like you said, it's your first 60 and everything else. Um, so it's high up there, but I don't think it's main material for you. It's definitely one of your first alts, though.
Yeah, I think Hunter's definitely first string alt for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's going to be day one. Let's go. Shaman. The part that gets me about shaman for you is during your little spiel. You said this right here may be enough to make us both want to shaman.
Oh yeah.
Um, so you really do like the shaman. Um, even before the runes and everything else, you've always kind of liked shaman. You've always wanted to play it and everything else. I think it's fairly high up there as well, so I'm gonna put it up there with the rogue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we get to plate warrior and Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Warrior, you're usually very much liking it and everything else, and you like the ability to be able to tank and to DPS, and you like your single-minded fury. However, you definitely seemed more enthused about the Paladin stuff. You definitely seem to really appreciate the changes with the Paladin and everything else. So when it comes to those two, I will put Paladin above Warrior. Now, that means we have 4 classes in the running.
So
We
here's
have
what I have.
Warrior.
I've got a spreadsheet up. Like I
Oh,
said, I
you already
might
did
do.
that.
Uh huh.
Nice.
So I put two things here. I put mains, and then I listed them out as you said. I'm rogue, shaman, paladin, warrior, and then under alts, very first, hunter. So what we're gonna do, I think I should pick 2 mains, one to play with you and one to play solo,
Okay.
and then obviously I'm gonna level everything, but we should pick the order in which I level the alts. So
Okay. Um, for the mains, there are 4 of them.
yep.
Um, so
So hold on, I'm also gonna
honestly,
do for Basil as well. So mains, we already know yours is gonna be Warlock,
yep,
so that's just gonna
that is
be.
definitely gonna
You
be
just
it.
want 1 main, or do you want 2 mains?
I only do 1 main.
Okay,
I may anything that I play aside from the Warlock is just gonna be an alt.
okay. So
It's
I
just gonna
got
be for funsies.
okay. So I got your main as the Warlock, and then I got your alt list started, and we will pick you 2 alts, and then we will do mine out of these 5. So I'll have 2 mains and 3 alts.
Okay. For my alts, I obviously have always liked the priest.
Okay, so
Um,
priest.
well, hold on a second. I gotta narrow it down for my alts. I may be able to pick my main easily,
Well, I
but
can
my
write them
alts.
like I'll type them all in the same row, and then I'll
Okay,
put your second choice. Like I'll put your first choice first in the first row, and then I'll put your second choice under it, and then we'll have our list.
gotcha.
Okay, so
All right, so
priest.
for the priest, I really like the idea of a healing mage, so I definitely want to alt
Okay,
that and try that.
mage. Yep,
Um, and shaman.
shaman. Okay, so what I just heard is we already know what your first alt is because you really want to do mage. So your second alt is between mage and shaman. So or priest and shaman. So there we go. We
Okay.
can talk through mine and then we'll talk through yours and then we will have this video wrapped up, which is good because we're already well over 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sure we are.
All right, so we are to the mains here. We got rogue, shaman, paladin, and warrior. So how are we narrowing this down to 2?
That's a good question. Um, so, um, warrior is relatively unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't think you're really going to be finding anything like crazy new that's going to excite you enough
I'm all right to
to.
go ahead and make warrior an alt. So I will go
Yes,
ahead and get
that's
rid
where
of
I was
that.
going with that.
Yep. So now we're down to rogue, shaman, and paladin. We have to eliminate one of these.
Okay. So, and in all honesty, I think Rogue should be one of your mains. You love Rogue, and with the mutilate changes and everything else, I really think you're going to like it. And also the added effect of being able to tank when you want to
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of is nice.
Okay, so I will
So
say this: as long as you're okay rolling on a PvP server, I will make my initial main a rogue.
I plan on playing on a PvP server because of Ashen Veil, sir.
Bam! There we go. All right, problem solved. First main is a rogue. So
Yep.
now we have to figure out between
What your second
shaman
main's going
and
to be.
paladin. Hmm.
And this right here is going to decide Horde or Alliance.
Yes, it is.
Because one is Horde and one is Alliance.
Uh huh.
And this is a very tough one because honestly, like the Shaman is really cool. Um, being able to dual wield and having an actual viable tanking spec, which that can be said to to the Paladin as well. Uh, it's very difficult for me to pin this one down. I almost want to say flip a coin, but we're not doing that. Uh, we're going to think rationally here. Um, so, I want you to, real quick, between the two, What do you like most about DPSing on them?
About DPS.
We're gonna go through all three specs, but
Okay, so
we're going through
DPS
DPS first.
on the Shaman, I like that there is the option. Obviously, I'm not going to play Elemental. I'm not an Elemental player. I'm not a caster. It's not going to happen. But I like that there's the option. If I ever
Mhm.
did get a wild hair and wanted to cast some lightning bolts, I could.
Okay.
Dual wielding is incredible. I love dual wielding. I love dual wielding in every game. I always
Mhm.
have, always will. I don't like. No, you said what do I like? So we're talking about what I like specifically. I like weapon imbues. I really like Wind Fury. I if it works how I think it's gonna work, I think that the DPS with Wind Fury is gonna be a lot more fun and smoothed out because each weapon is gonna have its chance. It's gonna be in that same vein as we had later, where you just use two really slow weapons and you're smacking, 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 and you're just hoping one of them procs, right?
Right.
And then with the Paladin for DPS, I love everything about all of the ret spells. We got all of the ret spells that I really like. We got all of the ret spells that I like the animations of. We got all of the things that I love about Paladin, and Paladin has always been one of my favorite classes. So, that being said, like Paladin, ret definitely, as far as flavor and watching it and enjoying like the animations and stuff wise, Paladin wins that.
Okay. All right. So tanking. What do you like about tanking on both? Start with
Um,
Shaman.
okay, so Shaman tanking is going to be more single target oriented. You are going to have a cooldown that gives you some AoE stuff. It is going to be good for dungeons. Their mitigation is not going to fare very well in raids. They'll be able to tank trash, but I don't think the way they work, how they have to ramp up their defenses, I
Hmm.
don't think they're going to be able to tank raid bosses. So, um, tanking on the shaman would be cool up until that point. For the content I'm going to be doing, I'll probably be pugging some raids, so I'm not going to be able to tank as a shaman. I'd probably be enhancing. So, tanking on the shaman's kind of a non-starter for me. On the
Okay.
paladin, obviously I love AoE grinding. Being able to solo dungeons is something I'm really passionate about that I think is a lot of fun. Being able to solo players with reflect damage is something I think is a lot of fun. I'm a very firm believer that if you gear your paladin correctly and you know how to play it, you can basically 1v1 anyone that's not a mage. Um, and the reason being is you can only hand of freedom so frequently,
Right.
and they can steal it. So um, that's a thing. We're also in the position where um, your mana problems aren't solved with solo play. But being able to use Crusader Strike with a one hander and regen mana, as well as help you DPS down your main target, on top of using Blessing of Wisdom or Judgment of Wisdom, is putting Prop Paladin way ahead. Um, for not only utility purposes, but being able to PvP as that and being able to just be more overall useful in the grand scheme of the game. Because under no circumstance are you going to look at a paladin and be like, oh yeah, you can't main tank this boss, because yeah, they can.
Right. All right. Um, I obviously see a trend starting here, but we're gonna go ahead and finish my thought process, just because that's how I work. Um, so let's go ahead and go to healing on both, and tell me what you like about that.
So the utilitarian part of healing on the shaman is way better. You've got all the totems, different totems for different situations. They're all really good. Chain heal is incredible. Healing rain is incredible. As far as like healing your party, healing five mans, healing dungeons, raid healing, shaman leaps and bounds better. All the cast times are similar. Your repertoire of heals and spells are better on the shaman because you have more spells that use for different situations.
Scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then part of the problem you had with the Shaman before was their single target healing wasn't the strongest. But with the addition of Earth Shield, um, it helps your single target. Like it doesn't eliminate the problem, but it makes it a little more manageable. Because your
Hmm.
heals from your Earth Shield are going to be scaling with your spell power. They are going to make it where every couple of big hits, your target's going to get healed for some portion of that damage and let you react to it a little better than you would have normally. Paladin is still and will always be the drop and bombs healer. Holy Light Spam Paladin will always be the best single target tank healer in the game. Holy Light Paladin will always be the best um, tank healer, period. You will put a beacon on your tank and you will heal the off tank. And if neither of them take damage, you will interrupt your cast. You'll start casting again, and that's just how you will heal. If you're healing 5 mans, putting the beacon on your tank and spamming flash, your heals per second. There's going to be a break point with your intellect where you have so much crit, so much spell crit that you can literally anytime you see a health bar that's not 100% in any circumstance, you can flash of light it, and you'll never and you will always top heals per second. Under no circumstance do I feel like the paladin is going to be out healed in a raid circumstance when it's important. Um, you're not really a reactive healer as a holy light bomb, Pally, but you start casting. If they don't take damage, stutter. Start casting, stutter. You've healed enough to know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Um, but the fact that that scales so hard and the healing is so like even when we were playing in Wrath, even after the changes like with Holy, it's a really similar feel where like I would you remember this when I was healing you in those heroics when I would just giggle because of how big the holy lights were.
Oh yeah. I remember.
Like one holy light's 3/4 of this 50k HP's tank's health. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, awesome. Healing, I think they're neck and neck, honestly, because like they are not the same type of healer. One of them
Right.
is for party and raid healing. One of them is for keeping your tanks alive, and I think that shows in their gameplay. That being said, yes, your shaman can keep your tank alive, and yes, your paladin can heal your party if you're doing a 5 man. But I think they're so distinct enough that I can't tell you, yeah, I think healing is better on one or the other because I think they're both incredible healers, and I think that they both do the job of healing very well.
Okay. So on that note, my score is 3 points for tank, 1 point for shaman.
And you mean 3 points for
Um,
pally, 1 point for shaman?
that's what I meant. Yes, 3 points for the pally and 1 point for the shaman. So it sounds like you have more positive to say about the paladin than the shaman. Not saying that the shaman doesn't have as much positive or doesn't have positives. It's just that you yourself seem to like the idea of paladin better.
I
So
honestly think
honestly,
making that decision came down like as soon as we started talking about that, I think that decision was made for me because I can farm gold in dungeons solo.
yeah, and I
Um
can spend your money.
yeah, well, we'll talk about that. And I
Uh,
can play and I mean I have multiple accounts so I can still play shaman on the same server. Um
right.
so yeah, I think so. Here's what I have come up with for mine, and I will tell you. Tell me if I got these out of order based on what we talked about. Since you're a little more um, in tune with that thing than I am. So I have Rogue and Paladin as mains. Obviously, the Rogue I'm going to play exclusively with your Warlock. The Paladin, obviously, I can play with any of your alts or solo. But the Rogue I'm going to play with your Warlock. Obviously, that just more narrow to lockouts, right? Like I may get a little ahead of you or a little behind you in leveling because our days off are different. But like the whole point
Right.
is, if we're both going to BFD this week on these 2 days because 3 day lockout, I will be free on the rogue.
Yeah.
Then the paladin, I can do whatever with it. And then I have my alts listed in this order: hunter first, then warrior, then shaman. But based on what we just talked about, I think it should be Shaman, Hunter, then Warrior.
I
Because
think that is a solid, yeah, because we bumped the warrior off first.
yeah. And then Hunter was, well, no, it should be the
Never
other
in the
way
main
around.
category.
It should be the other way around because Hunter was already in alts, so it should be Shaman, Warrior, Hunter because Shaman and
Yeah.
Warrior were both already mains. Warrior got bumped
Yep.
first, then the Shaman. So Shaman, Warrior, Hunter. Okay, so Rogue and Paladin mains, Shaman, Warrior, Hunter in that order, leveling up. Obviously, it's not that big a deal because once the next phase comes out, the 1 to 25 is getting an XP buff. So like I'm gonna be able to keep them up, but like and
Right.
then yeah. So cool. All right,
Indeed.
so we've got now we get to have this conversation for you if you're going to play the priest or you're going to play the shaman because we already know warlock and mage. So
Right. Um, so, with the sweeping changes with the shaman, I'm thinking that's probably gonna, sneak ahead of the priest.
here's my
Yes.
argument and tell me if this is enough of a reason to make you want to play it. The
Okay.
problems that were perceived by you about leveling the shaman before are gone
Hmm.
and you want to tank on it.
Yes. Very much so. That's basically why I was going through that thought process.
Yeah.
Um,
So you want to
Obviously, priest is really fun, and I like penance and everything else, and um, the whole mirror image thing is going to be really cool too. But like when it boils down to it, I think shaman's probably going to be ahead.
Yep. So here's what I have you. I do have you with 3 alts instead of 2, just because you had the option there. Obviously, I don't think you're gonna be playing alts as much as I am, but um, we got you with the warlock locked in, and then we've got you with the mage first, and then shaman, and then priest.
Sounds like a plan to me. I am down
Mm,
with that plan.
I think it sounds good. I think that's gonna work out. So I think we've picked our mains. So easy money. I already know what our first race is going to be. Actually, what both of my races are going to be. I know you're going to pick a human because you refuse to be a gnome.
Yep.
And that makes my rogue a human by default, which is fine because I want to have perception anyway, so I can see other rogues in PvP. And
Yep.
then I don't like playing dwarf paladins, so I'm going to be a human paladin. Um, Now, I will say if you plan to PvP primarily on your paladin and you are listening to this video, pick a dwarf. Stone Skin is OP. It removes blind, it removes all other poisons because blind is a poison in vanilla, and it removes bleed effects. It is too strong not to be dwarf if you're going to be a paladin for PvP.
And on that note, since we're talking about that, with racials and stuff, the priest, I was listening in on I think it was an interview or a Q&A about this season of Discovery. They were talking about how, Fear Ward is super busted and, you know,
Yep.
makes you pretty much required to go a specific race class combination for
Yep.
priest. They were talking about making it to where there may be a quest line later on where you get the other races um, uh, class specific racials. So you may play an undead priest like we see right here on his 60 upgrades page, but you may be able to still get Fear Ward.
Which
You
would be
may
cool
still be
because
able
then
to
you'd have
get.
Devouring Plague and Fear Ward, which will be OP.
Yes, and that goes the same way. So if you started off as one that can use Fear Ward, you can pick up, Devouring Plague.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really cool. I think that's a really good idea. I don't think that's going to be in our first section of the season of Mass Discovery, but at some point, the way they are making it sound, that is something they definitely want to look into. So
Absolutely.
don't if you are playing this game for fun in the first place, not for the meta, who cares what your racials are? Like if you really like the racial because you like the way it is, so like with the troll, you really like just going berserk and you just know you can attack faster for a little bit. Sweet, go for it. That's a flavor you like. But if your only choice for picking a specific thing is because of its racial, then that's not a fun decision. That's a meta decision. And keep that in mind when you're creating something. If you are looking to have fun with your video game, pick what is fun to you, not what's best.
Absolutely.
Um, because Warlock tank's probably not going to be the best tank. It's going to be a good tank, but it's probably not going to be the best. I don't care. I think it sounds fun.
Yep. I'd
So
like
I'm
to
going to
add
do
to
it.
that. I always tell you in my videos, I'm not talking about the meta. Sometimes I may put out something that is the best, and I will tell you, but most of the time I don't care. I'm getting smiles per gameplay, not most effective tactics. So that being said, we are coming up on 2.5 hours for this podcast. So, any final thoughts before we sign off out of here?
Super stoked for Season of Discovery. I'm really looking forward to these changes. Um, I really hope it's going to be fun. I hope we can get a lot of people playing. More people playing, the more Blizzard's looking at it, the more information they gather, and we may actually get that full fledged Classic Plus that we're all asking for. Well, about 50% of the player base is asking for. Um, and if you really want to see that, play Season of Discovery, test it out, because almost everybody's in agreement. The Season of Discovery is the beta test for Classic Plus.
Yep. Give your
So
feedback. They're listening.
give
They're
your
already
feedback.
changing. They're already changing things that
Yes,
we asked for. So, all right. Well,
absolutely.
we're gonna end it there. So this is Chigg and Basil chat. We will catch you guys in the next one.
Later, everybody.